To the emergency meeting of the Office of Foreign Affairs of the Board of Trustees, let the record reflect that today is Wednesday, March 25th, 2026, and the time now is 10:33 in the morning. Board Secretary, please take a roll call.
Trustee Ahuna.
Eo.
Trustee Akaka. Trustee Akina.
Aloha mai kako.
Trustee Alapa. Trustee Galuteria.
Eo.
Trustee Lindsay.
Present.
Trustee Souza. Trustee Waihe'e is excused. Chair Kahele.
Present.
We have 7 trustees present. You have quorum.
Okay, thank you, Lehua. This meeting can be viewed via live stream on OHA's website at www.oha.org/live stream and also on Olelo TV. For those joining us on Zoom to testify or to listen, please note that we're using the webinar platform rather than the standard Zoom meeting format. And as an attendee, you'll be able to watch and listen to the proceedings. If you wish to testify on a specific agenda item, please follow these steps. Please raise your hand to indicate that you'd like to speak. We will change your status from attendee to panelist when it is your turn. This may take a few seconds, so we appreciate your patience. As a panelist, you have the option to turn on your camera and unmute yourself to provide testimony. And once you have finished testifying, please mute yourself and you'll be returned to attendee status. Chair would like to now introduce the Chief Operations Officer for the Office of Foreign Affairs, Keishan Kikina, to introduce the administrative staff in attendance today. Morning, Keishan.
Morning. Aloha kakaiaka kako, mahalo nui Chair, Vice Chair, and Trustees, no kia halavai. This morning, we have with us from administration in support of this meeting our Interim Administrator and CEO, Summer Silva, our Investment Director and Interim CFO, Ryan Lee, our Associate General Counsel, Everett Rosella Gog, our General Counsel, Everett Ota, our Senior Director of Strategy and Implementation, Elena Fardin, our Director of Economics and Business Resilience, Pony Askew, our Director of Research and Evaluation, Carla Hostetter, our Director of Communications, Bill Brennan, our IT Systems Engineer and Administrator, Daniel Santos, and our BSA Manager, Ilima Kela. Mahalo.
Thank you, Keishan. And for the Board of Trustees, we have our Board Secretary, Lehua Itokazu, our Interim Deputy Chief of Staff, Alina Ayong. We have our Board Counsel, Kapona Kiakona, and also let the record reflect that Trustee Akaka has joined us now. So with the roll call of 8 trustees, we now have quorum to proceed. Lehua, do we have anyone sign up to speak on our agenda item? It would be the first item, new business, item number A.
We have 1 person online that has their hand raised. We have Pikachu Billionaire.
Hello, guys. Pikachu Billionaire here. I want to approve of what you guys are doing. Great thing. We had the U.S. military meeting. I'll make it brief and short. Currently, we're in the city council meeting right now for this access. If you don't know their budget, asking for $6 billion, 4.8 for their operating budget, 1.1 billion for the capital budget. None of that money is allocated for enough for the Kona storms that hit. About 30 million is only allocated for emergencies. Andrew DePaul is lying to all of you who still have problems in Pa'ake Road, Ili Road. We were there. People have been stuck in their homes for 7 to 10 days. Now I want to do a shout out to Keone Souza trustees who attended the U.S. military meeting during the Manoa storms. We're at Ala Moana Hotel. And we talked to the military. They're pretty straight and direct. So one of the civilians, Jeff, goes and tells everybody how the emergency is supposed to happen. And let's just pretend you're all mayors for all 4 counties. How it's supposed to go, disaster happens, you contact the governor, Governor Green is supposed to contact the guard activates, and whatever resources each county needs, the mayors tell the governor sends it to the guard, and the guard figures it out. That's what they told us. Now, when I asked Jeff during the meeting, did anyone ask for cots, generators, pumps? Well, we need, just like Lahaina, Uluwalo, Big Island, everyone knows what I mean, especially Chair Kaele being the Air Force officer that he is. However, when Jeff, you can hear it on my Instagram under Legendary Billionaire, he says Pikachu. Mayor Bisson and Mayor Rick Blanchard did not ask for cots, generators, or pumps. So city and county is failing miserably. You can see homes floating around. So I want to appreciate everything that you guys are doing today for the emergency meetings, but there is a gap I want to let you all know about. When I talked to Trustee Souza, he broke it down for me, and I called Trustee Kelly Akina's office. The gap I see is that when people ask for OHA for help, we feel like we're going to get direct help. But because you guys are approving the policy, you cannot give us direct help, so you have to go through Hawaiian Council or another administrative ways. Please explain that to the people. because they do need help, but now they're struggling, they're surviving. We're doing community hubs. So however creatively you guys figure it out, because I know the state government is PLT screwing you guys of all the money, at least 58 to 60 million every year annually. So I know you guys can figure out tax Josh Green, tax Donald Trump, because the state's only offering $1,500 to Rahima, and that's not enough. I gotta jump back on their Zoom now. So thank you all. Appreciate you. Aloha. Love you all.
It's 22 right now. You want me to raise?
Thank you. Lehua, is there anyone else signed up to speak?
There is no one else signed up to speak.
No one else? Okay. Well, trustees, staff, and those in attendance and those watching online, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs Board of Trustees is convened today under extraordinary and urgent circumstances. Over the past week, our Pai'aina has experienced catastrophic weather and flooding as a result of the March 2026 Kona Low event. Communities across Hawaii have been severely impacted, homes destroyed or rendered uninhabitable, families displaced, vehicles lost, farms and crops damaged, businesses disrupted, and critical infrastructure strained. In many areas, our people are still dealing with flooded roadways, limited access to basic services and sanitation, lack of clean water, and uncertainty about what recovery will look like in the days and weeks ahead. For many of our Native Hawaiian beneficiaries, this is not just an inconvenience. It is a direct threat to their housing stability, their health, their livelihoods, and their ability to care for their families. At the same time, we are now in the midst of a 40-day federal government shutdown within the Department of Homeland Security, where an estimated 500 Department of Homeland Security employees in Hawaii are Native Hawaiian, having missed at least one full paycheck and now entering a second pay period without compensation. The Department of Homeland Security includes frontline agencies such as TSA, FEMA, the Coast Guard, and Customs and Border Protection, agencies that are essential to transportation, security, disaster relief, and public safety. These disruptions are not abstract. They have real, immediate consequences for emergency coordination, essential services, and economic stability. And as we know, when systems are strained, Native Hawaiian communities, OHA's beneficiaries, are often among the most vulnerable and the most affected. Pursuant to HRS 92.8a, this board has determined that an imminent peril to public health, safety, and welfare exists. The governor's emergency proclamation, as well as similar proclamations throughout the counties, remains in effect. The state also awaits a response to its request for federal disaster assistance, and the convergence of these events demands timely and decisive action. Waiting the standard 6-day notice period would only delay our ability to respond and could increase harm to those we serve. Today, our kuleana is clear. We must consider how best to mobilize OHA's resources, including the Iola Lahui Emergency Assistance Program, the fiscal year 2026 Emergency Disaster Relief Aid, and the Malama Honua Repair Program to provide immediate relief and support to our beneficiaries during this time of crisis. This is what we are here to do, to act with urgency, with care, and with purpose, grounded in our fiduciary responsibility and guided by aloha for our people. Mahalo to each of you for being here and for your commitment to serving our lahui in this critical moment. At this time, the chair would like to welcome and recognize two special guests who have joined us today to provide their assessment of conditions on the ground to help inform how OHA can mobilize its resources in support of a whole-of-government response. Our first guest is retired Hawaii Army National Guard Colonel and current administrator of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, HAIMA, James Barros. Aloha, Administrator Barros. Please join us at the Board of Trustee table and welcome to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha. So I wanted to just kind of share some slides. First, aloha, Chair. Thank you for the invitation and the board members. Just kind of share a little bit from Haima's perspective, and what you said earlier resonates on where do we go from here. Our communities were impacted, and we're still doing damage assessment, but it was a very complex Kona Low. We were started tracking on the 5th, but Wailua doesn't get hit till the 20th. So it impacted communities at different times with different levels of rain and some wind too, but mostly water damage throughout the state. So we'll just share some slides. Next, please. So as we're tracking with the National Weather Service, they're talking about this Kona Low, that there's a lot of moisture in there, and they're telling us in this 96-hour period, we're gonna get a lot of rain. But as we're sitting there and we're talking, in 96 hours, we can handle that much rain. But when the low hits us, it's pumping, you know, a large percentage of that moisture in one period. So like with Manoa on Monday, that kind of dumping of that much rain in that short amount of period is what impacted the state. Next slide, please. So some of the rainfalls throughout our communities. Again, that kind of rain, our infrastructure really cannot handle, and it's running off of all the mountains. You know, on the Wailua Haleiwa side, at the Waianae Mountain Range, on that side of the range, they got about 14 inches that's just now running down, that ran down. Next slide, please. Just some of the pictures. The one on the left, that's one of the Haima employees, the family. So they're currently doing their muck outs down in he's in Wailua. The ones on the right, some of the coverts from Molokai. When we talked to them, going, "Oh, it's kind of big river." He said, "No, that's not supposed to be on river," but everything just flew off, you know, flowing downstream. Next slide, please. On Molokai, and then the one in the center, we got the governor to look at the Wahiawa Reservoir and talk to dam safety and dole, and really look at, I know there was a lot of concern about that dam in Wahiawa. So I have another slide that will talk about that. Next slide, please. Just some snapshots from Manoa on really that little window of time that got that much rain that pushed down the valley into Alawai. Yes, sir. Next slide. And then down in Wailua, the devastation, when we do assessments of the homes, you know, we're looking for, you know, major damage, destroyed, and we're going to see a lot of I'm assessing, we're going to see a lot of destroyed homes in the area. Otaki Camp for sure. Next slide, please. So with the Wahiawa Dam, I know there was a lot of concern about the dam, and there was some mixed messaging that happened, but the dam operated the way it was supposed to. The spill that's on that side of the reservoir, it's pumping water for sure coming down into the rivers, but there is no structural damage to the dam itself. And the reservoir, because it's, you know, built like this, it can hold more and more water. But what happens is, as there's more water being put in there, the city and county of Honolulu, our first responders, our National Guard will stand up and do some safety staging for evacuations. So that's what happened that day. Like I said, the water that came into Haleiwa and Wailua, is, some of it is from the overflow of the dam, not the overflow, but the outlet. But a lot of it's coming off the mountains. One of the things that we're looking at from the mitigation side with the state, and we'll work with the counties, opening these waterways to ensure that, you know, there's proper dredging on all of them. So one of the things that were pointed out to us was the Wailua, where the rivers come in, there's not enough mitigation there to ensure the waterways are open. So that's one of the projects we're looking at. Next slide. Next slide, please. And then, you know, our messaging, constant messaging from the state and our county, every agency in the state putting out safety messages that says we're in a flash flood warning. So when Manoa goes into that flash flood warning, it really gave us a short window of when we got the warning to when that water was coming. So we're really partnering hard with the National Weather Service. None of us was tracking that Manoa one because that morning when we looked at the National Weather Service and they briefed us, everything was pushing to the east and this pocket of moisture got caught in Manoa. So messaging is a big one for us. Next slide. So our way ahead now, our teams are out doing damage assessment. Like you messaged earlier, that the governor has submitted a request for a major disaster to the federal government. What Governor Green is doing is he's wants this accelerated. You know, the FEMA's process it's long, right? When an event happens, FEMA says, hey, you guys got 30 days to do these joint damage assessments and we'll come out and we'll start helping. We're not waiting. You know, the governor said, no, expedite that. So we have FEMA teams with the state and the county doing assessments now. They just completed on Hawaii Island. They just landed on Maui this morning, and they're starting on Oahu today. So part of it is we're asking for public assistance, which will address the damages to the schools. Just before this, DOE called and said, you know, Kona is going to cost us a lot of money to clean it up and get it ready for students. So we're trying to expedite that with them. So that's public assistance, our roads, our bridges, our schools, airports, hospital. One of the ones that we're looking at too is Kula Hospital on Maui that had to evacuate because of the impacts of Kona Low 1 impacted it. And then with Kona Low 2, it just, you know, made it worse and they had to move patients out. So we really want to look at that hospital. So we're doing assessments across the board on the PA side. The individual assistance is for the property homeowners, and they're starting to do that. I think tomorrow on Oahu is when we'll have the joint teams ready to go with the county, city and county of Honolulu. So we do those assessments, we get the damage, and then we send that up to the federal government saying, this is what we're estimating is a damage to the state of Hawaii, to not just our infrastructure, but to our citizens. And then the third part is we're asking for hazard mitigation. So that within that 3 buckets, we'll get money for infrastructure, we'll get money for families, and then we'll get money for projects so that we can build back stronger so this doesn't happen again. So we're optimistic right now. I think talking with FEMA, we have FEMA folks on the ground. We do have a FEMA incident management team with us right now, and we're constantly talking. They're in our meetings, and we're posturing the state for, you know, a major disaster declaration, which will open up federal monies. But like you mentioned, you know, the federal government's a little bit slower, but we are, you know, accelerating and saying, no, we need this sooner than later. That's where we are, sir.
You okay to take some questions?
Yes, sir.
Trustees, questions for the Director of HAIMA? Trustee Keel.
Thank you, Chair. James, thank you for your career service, and thanks for serving in HAIMA. I appreciate the responsiveness of the agency. You mentioned that there were some problems with messaging, and I sensed that there were two kinds of problems that may have frustrated your work, but I find no fault. The first was the difference between the term flood watch and flood warning. I spoke with a lot of folks who didn't know which term meant act now because they're so similar. Secondly, and you mentioned this, the wording in the messaging of what took place with the Wahiawa Dam. Across the world, even after it got clarified in Hawaii, there were news reports of imminent danger of the dam failing. And whether that meant the dam cracking and bursting open and massive flood or water tipping over the top wasn't clear for quite a while. My first question is, did these messaging issues frustrate your efforts to any extent? Did they cause unnecessary panic? And what do you think could be done about that?
Yes, sir. When we saw those messages go out to, we had to ground truth it, going, where is this coming from? Who's saying this? Because if it's, DLNR dam safety is in constant communication with the dam owners. And we had folks actually deployed with eyes on the dam. So for that message to get out that way, it was frustrating. So we're looking at how that message got out, the source, and then the fixes for that of what's the standard messaging that we want to go out. So like a warning, when we get a flash flood warning, that means it's happening. A watch is when the National Weather Service says, hey, potentially you might have some flash flooding. So we're trying to get the messaging for our citizens to be, kind of get ready and go. So that watch would be, hey, get ready, something's out there. The warning is, hey, you gotta go. There's something actively happening. But as a enterprise, emergency management enterprise, we do have to strengthen our notification system. I think we're better today than we were 3 years ago, and we definitely want to be better as we move into hurricane season.
Mahalo.
Thank you,
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mahalo, Chair. Thank you for coming
Thank you.
and explaining. I want to follow up a little bit on Trustee Aquina. And this is basic. We've come here today to act. We're not going to leave this table without acting. But to the specific messaging question, when we decide how we're going to participate and we join the family of supporters, consistency in messaging is key. We have a great communications team. And we want to ensure that, they are in partnership with other communications entities within the bureaucracy. So if we could maintain that and the messaging. And this is a wonderful time by which to educate the community on definitions like you asked about those two different types of recognitions, right?
Yes.
So I'm just emphasizing consistency in messaging going forward.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair.
I think part of it too, in July when we had the tsunami warning, the messaging and the understanding of what are we talking about when we go into a warning, and what does that, as a citizen, what do you want me to do when you tell me it's a warning? So we gotta work on that education piece, sir.
Just to finish up, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but what is a law? Kona Low. Have you that definition, I think, needs to be shared.
Okay.
I know it's after the fact, but it's a good education piece.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So, and when we get a Kona Low, I mean, we all know if there's a hurricane, what steps we're gonna take. right? There's pre-impact. We know, hey, there's a hurricane coming. What the size of the hurricane? They can tell us it's a Cat 1, Cat 2. We know the winds. The Kona Low. We'll work with the National Weather Service on helping us better message that for our citizens. Then we can add that to our education. Yes, sir.
I know yesterday you had a chance to do a site assessment of Molokai, at least an aerial site assessment. I know there was a lot of rain, heavy, intense precipitation there, especially Molokai, Maui. Can you speak to maybe what you assessed on the island of Molokai?
So even on the island of Molokai, what was amazing was they cleared it up. The roads are open. And, you know, when I talked to the county guys, I was like, oh, the road's open already? He said, oh, no, bro, that's how we do it. And we see that in our communities. And I think that's part of our strategy as a state is now, how do we empower our communities to do that? How do we empower Wailua to stand up right away, which they did, and they're out there, they're doing it. What kind of training can we provide in blue skies so that they are better prepared to stand this up? So there was a lot of rain that hit the mountains that just flowed into, you know, the ocean. There was one area, and was one of the pictures, I was like, wow, that's kind of a nice river bed with rocks. They said, no, that's not on the river. Everything just came flowing off. And they, from Amos and, you know, Maui emergency management perspective, he was looking at how the island gets cut off in various areas and how can we strengthen those areas. There were as we're doing the aerial assessment too, a lot of landslides, smaller landslides along the roads too. And they're still doing the muck outs along the highway too.
So as you've had a chance to assess the damage over the last few days, and these teams, including Haima, are going to start to go out into the communities, especially here on Oahu. What would be your recommendation for OHA? You know, our trust resources are very specific to support our beneficiaries, which are Native Hawaiian families and those Native Hawaiian communities throughout the state. From what you've seen, any suggestions for the board to consider in terms of how we can best make an impact with the resources that we have?
I think right now my biggest concern is going to be the living conditions for the folks as they're doing this muck outs. You know, we still have that boil water. The mud is still pretty thick, and as they're trying to get out, when you look at the house, you cannot stay there. So where do they stay? You know, so right now we're getting that assessment of, okay, where are they? And if they can stay in their homes, then we can do step repairs, slowly repaired. So I think the biggest concern is, you know, from my perspective right now is the living conditions. If they can return home, and if they can't, where do they go? So for example, Otaki Camp, the families that were displaced, one house is off the foundation. You know, now that family is homeless. So what resources can we come in with the state, with the federal government, perhaps OHA, to assist those families?
Okay. Trustees, any other questions? Trustee Akaka?
Mahalo for joining us today. Mahalo for all the work that you've been doing for our community. What specific points would you recommend that our people, our community know, and those beyond our shores in terms of what you folks do and what everybody should know from now and up until the next so many months?
You know, I'm as we have teams working to do the assessments and get a good look at what happened with this Kona Low, I'm super concerned of for us as a state moving into hurricane season. Because hurricane season, the entire state's gonna get the kind of rain that we saw in Manoa on Monday. The entire state's gonna get winds. So this wasn't a wind event. A hurricane will come with wind event. A hurricane will come with storm surge. So I'm still, from my perspective, very, very concerned for hurricane season. So it's, right now, like I mentioned earlier, is how do we build back stronger communities, and how do we empower these communities so that when the landslides on Molokai happen, this community that's trapped, that's gonna be trapped for a little while, they know what to do and how to handle it. You know, so we constantly talk about this 2 weeks ready, food, water, medicine, and a go bag. We'll constantly put that message out, that's kind of our first line defense as a family. And then looking at your home and what can I do to strengthen my living quarters for the winds. Some of the flooding, you know, sir, one of the things with the houses too that we're pulling in the insurance commissioners too, so that we can look at the insurance of these properties. Some, they don't have the proper insurance that they needed, so that'll make things more difficult for the homeowners. Sorry, did I answer your question? I felt like I
Yes.
started rambling, sorry.
If there's any other information that it would be good for a community to know, and those that are watching from afar, and what they should know, especially if they're going to come to Hawaii at some point in time within the next so many months.
Yeah, we really want to strengthen our communities, and one of the aspects that we're looking at is for our visitors too. How do we strengthen, you know, that community during an event? If it's a hurricane and we know it's tracking, our messaging will be very clear: go home, get out of Waikiki, go home. But for example, a tsunami, they would be trapped with us, and they're part of us. What we're trying to get to is that we have communities of survivors and not victims. So that's what we're seeing out in our communities, is they're survivors, they're not victims. They come out of the house going, okay, what we gotta do? We gotta open this road, let's get this road open. What would have been, I think, better for us is that if they understood that before impact, before they got flooded, on how's the process gonna work? How would we want them to put green waste versus, you know, household goods versus other things?
In follow-up as well, my concern that I see as news reports comes out and we see more happening through community voices is the saturation of the earth, and what you had touched on earlier, and with the dam and so forth. What are some really good points for those to know when it comes to saturation or oversaturation, what that means for foundation of buildings, for homes, for large trees and so forth? What are some best points of information for us to know in this coming year following these storms and as we go into hurricane season, as you had pointed out?
Yeah, and really our wet season started in February, right? We got a lot of heavy rains early in February. We had some wind events, so that the ground is saturated. What surprised me is some of the bigger trees, the roots weren't as deep as I thought they were. So we got to really look at that too. I think in 2018, one of the terms that we learned when the hurricane hit the Big Island was albizia trees.
Yeah.
Nobody knew anything
Very
about
weak.
albizia trees until that happened, and we realized this big tree isn't strong, and it's coming down with winds like that. So how do we address that piece of it too, with our mitigation? And when we were walking on Molokai, we're talking about really leveraging the green fee and that tax to get after some of the mitigation that we need to do it throughout the state.
Well, Mr. Chair, hey, mahalo, James, for being here, brother.
Thank you.
Hey, you know, coming out of Lahaina, Maui wildfires, I know it's not easy to take on something like this, so thank you for all you do and your team. My question would be, I mean, if we talk about the Kona Low 1 versus Kona Low 2, I think Kona Low 1, the winds coming out of Makapu'u, right, to that channel, 80 miles an hour. We talk about Ualapu'e, that road is always flood on the way, right, Molokai, and just regular rains, right? Different areas. How do you guys prioritize throughout the year? I understand you guys are emergency, we act in emergency. How do we prioritize infrastructure, assessing needs throughout the year to prepare for different seasons, hurricane seasons, or whatever it may be?
We work closely with our county partners, you know, with the emergency managers in the counties.
Okay.
Right now, we have a solid relationship with the counties and the state. It's been a while since, and it's kind of building those relationships, and we will always support them in their efforts. So Haima doesn't get to prioritize what Maui needs. We'll take our lead from MEMA and the mayor. So even on the Big Island, same thing. We will work with the county administrator and their mayor on what's best for the county. I have my own opinions, and I try to shape them. So for example, some of the mitigation money from FEMA, we had a chunk of mitigation money that's coming our way. From the state side, we prioritize the water systems throughout the islands. So every county has some mitigation money to ensure that they have backup power to their water systems so that we can keep the fresh water flowing. In a large event, from our perspective, we can survive without power. We're not going to survive without water. So we're trying to really strengthen our freshwater system. So prioritizing will really be, you know, with our county partners.
Sure, follow up. Thanks for that, James. You know, if we're to say all the areas impacted during the storm, what would be one area that you would say that we didn't anticipate that happening? Would it be Manoa? Would it be Waianae, Makaha Beach? There's other debris out there, that stream opening up, or Wailua? Where would it be? Just off the top of your head, maybe one area that we didn't anticipate. Because yesterday we addressed long-term issues, right? Cesspools, grading permits, illegal grading.
Yeah.
One instance, it may be the case in Manoa, we don't know, right? The findings of that. But, you know, watersheds, natural flow of things. Like, would that be a county issue, individual counties, and we deal with it when it gets there? Or how do we, just moving forward, I think, just for OHA wants to be a partner,
Yeah.
right? The nonprofits want to be a partner, the counties, the state, and I think right now we're moving forward like that, and it's a great time. So how do we prepare? I know funding is one way. We got the funding for like the federal bridges, federal funding for the Department of Transportation to update bridges. That was a huge problem. Roads caving in. Maui, we've seen it all over the place. Roads caving in, trucks falling, semi-trucks falling into a pothole or a sinkhole in Molokai.
Yeah.
So I think this is, I mean, we were here, I think today, Chair, trying to act immediately, but this is a part of a long-term solution.
Yes.
I think the bigger problem is the state and the federal level, that connection as well.
Yeah.
And so that's also something I know we got to address. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Well, I know the administrator has to leave soon, so we have two more questions. We'll go with Trustee Ahuna first, and then Trustee Alapa. Trustee Ahuna.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, James, for your presentation. My concerns have to do with, you know, I've been watching on social media. There's a lot of trash. How is our landfills doing, and will you guys be opening up more lands to replace if these landfills are filled? And what kind of lands would you guys be using if you guys do open up landfills?
Yes, sir. So the landfill issue, it would be a county issue. During this emergency phase, what we do during this phase is a temporary site. So just like in Lahaina, it was the county had to work where's where's all this gonna go? We would come in with a temporary site to store it, but then it really becomes a county issue. So I couldn't speak on the landfill piece of it.
Thank you. A lot of our lands, like after the hurricanes, were transition places for trash, and now the people can't live on it because of it. So I just was kind of concerned. We usually find places are usually on our lands, so I was kind of worried about these landfills being filled up. So thank you.
Aloha, James. How are you?
Good.
Good. So nice to see you. My question is regarding, you see a lot of videos on social media. What the most heartbreaking is to see our kupuna, those with special needs, the animals. They're stuck in their homes. I mean, literally frozen in their beds. They couldn't move, and so forth. So my question is, what is the plan for and the resources available, hopefully, for the recovery of our people, especially those in dire need? I saw a lot of hubs pop up all over the place. Are those particular items, hubs available, or something you guys would consider in doing in the future?
Yes. So all the hubs are community hubs. The community is running those. What from our perspective is we want to help train the community on the hub. Because when you go on social media too, they're saying, hey, this is how we're gonna do them. I can tell you in 23 when I went to Maui and went to one of the shelters, it touched my heart that there was a county worker that said, "But this is my shelter that I'm running for people impacted because this is my family, this is my ohana. That's what we're doing here," and that's, I really believe, is the strength of our state. So from an emergency management's perspective is how can we empower them? How can we train them? How can we help them so that when this happens, they know how to clear the roads, they know what to do with the debris, they know, hey, this group, you guys gonna set up on hub. This group, we know where our kupuna live. We're gonna check on them because this is our, and we have what's called an HARP, Hawaii Hazards Awareness Resilience Program, where we try to build these communities like that. So it's been a while and we're slowly working. I think we got some traction. Right now we think Waimanalo will be one of those that will become an HARP, and it's part of training the community and the community having an action plan that they all buy into and they're all aware of. And when we talk mitigation, it's the same thing where we talk to that HARP, that community, to look at what's the real hazards for us in this community. So when we talk Pololo, and we're talking sirens with Pololo, and they said, hey, I need one siren. Well, what threat are you talking about? They said, oh, tsunami. Well, but if a tsunami hit Pololo, we all screwed, right? I need the community to really look at what is a threat, what's the hazard that's gonna face us. And I think that would get after what your question was about, it being very community-centric in the assessments of, our neighborhood, of our, district.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate your time. I know you have other places to go. I would ask that as the next few days and week continues to evolve, and you are able to assess with the other county, federal, FEMA, and other state partners that if you can see a place where OHA can plug in really quickly, we would really appreciate that information. We're working with the Hawaiian Council and other community partners, and there's groups like OHA or nonprofits that can move very quickly to provide relief aid to those families that you're talking about that need a place to stay, need a hotel to stay in, need that bill to be paid, need new clothes, need new, you know, things for their kids. So if you can keep OHA in mind, we would really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks
Absolutely.
for giving us, you know, your time today. We really appreciate you coming by.
Thank you.
Mahalo. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Take a quick recess to mahalo Administrator Barros. Chief Executive Officer of the Hawaiian Council, Kuhio Lewis, whose organization has raised over $222,000 in the past 5 days for emergency relief efforts related to flooding on Oahu. Just yesterday, Kuhio and his team were in the field alongside representatives from OHA led by Vice Chair Souza conducting damage assessments from Waimanalo to Wailua. So aloha Kuhio and welcome back to OHA.
Aloha trustees. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, yesterday we had a really great day. I was able to go with Trustee Souza to visit some of the impacted areas to get a clear sense of some of the impacts that people were facing and the challenges they were facing. As of today, we've actually raised about $600,000 from small donations that have been matched by corporate donors, as well as with our own resources. Alongside trustee, we heard, we got to listen, we got to assist in some areas. And we also just wrote checks right on the spot to support community organizations that were on the ground. I think in this moment, community is looking for leadership. They're looking for who's out there to support them. And it's of course those that are impacted, but it's also those that are volunteering and supporting the work that's going on. We have been working on collecting data because, of course, decisions should be derived from data. And so we're working with the community hubs as well as our own networks to start gathering data. And I actually wanted to pull up some of the preliminary data that's already been rolling in, just to give you a snapshot of what we're starting to see and hear from our communities directly. So this is a map of those that have responded to our survey. This survey is similar to questions that we asked on Maui. Of course, we learned a lot during our Maui recovery efforts. And so we have a better sense of what to ask people, especially in this moment or snapshot. So this is just these dots represent those that have responded. So you can kind of see that it's not just on the north side. Impact is across the island. I think that's important to note because everybody thinks Wailua. There's actually, and I'm focusing for the purpose of this presentation primarily on Oahu, but these are those that responded on Oahu. If Lehua, you can click on the tab up top, and can you make them bigger, please? The screen. Oh, that's the biggest goal. Okay. I think there's another in the middle. In the middle at the top, there's a tab. I think it says dashboard. There you go. Oh my God, so small. Okay, there we go. So this data here starts to tell us who was hardest hit. So this data set tells you 35% of those that have completed the survey have kupuna living in their homes. There you go. 55% of them have keiki, 64% of them have pets, 85% of those responding have direct water damage or flood damage. You can scroll down a little bit more. And again, this is just preliminary data that we've been able to look at. It's still rolling in. Where are people staying? The majority of them are staying with family and friends. This is a similar trend that we saw on Maui after the Lahaina fires. The first thing they do is they go with family and friends. And of course, that doesn't last forever. So trying to find a way to support those families that are taking in displaced people should be part of our strategy. 5 of those that completed the survey are in hotels, and 4 are just in temporary housing, likely provided by the state or other organizations, perhaps churches. Next data set. This is just a question about how high did the water rise. A little bit more down. These are the immediate needs, and these needs are going to shift over time. Of course, right now, what's being shared is that just basic supplies, food and water is needed. They need cleanup support. They need clothes, shelter, housing, transportation, childcare, medication. So these are just basic necessities. And again, this is coming directly from those impacted. Keep going, next data set. This is a pretty shocking number based on those that, keep going, Lehua. 89% of them do not have flood insurance. That's what we're seeing with this initial data sampling. So that is troubling. These families will likely have to figure out how to rebuild their lives without any insurance support. Next data set. Oh, and these are just some direct words from those that responded to the survey. I'm able to live in the house, but concern of more rain will just make our house worse. I evacuated my house today. I'm staying with friends because of flooding and the dangerous conditions. While leaving Palolo Valley on Waioma'o Road, I have to drive through immense flooding, move boulders, rocks off the roadway. My car got flooded, going through sections of the street. Car smells moldy, musty, and is drenched in water. So these are just, again, this is only based on 106 samplings that we've analyzed so far. More data is coming in. We want a much bigger data set. And of course, now that we know there's floods happening on other islands, we'll be expanding to take a look at how we can assess the impacts to those islands as well. But I think with respect to the board's discretion that you have, I think what community is looking for in this moment is just where the support can come from quickly. Yesterday when I was just compelled, I took the checkbook with me. It's not something I do all the time. But when you're in the moment and you're seeing these people trying to execute the work, the last thing that you want them to worry about is how they're going to fund the next day supplies, or how they're gonna be able to put gas in their cars. And so you just feel compelled to act, and that's what we did yesterday. We acted, and we gave what we could in the moment. And it was met with tears. They embraced us, and I think that is, in part how a partnership between our two organizations. We have much more flexibility in terms of how we manage our resources and donations. But there is a way in which we can do things quicker and more efficiently just by way of that partnership. What I would recommend to the board, if there is a recommendation, is to support those that are on the ground. The nonprofit organizations just need support. They are looking for funding while trying to do the work. And they're the ones collecting donations, water, food, supplies to get out to families. We saw that firsthand in Honolulu yesterday. They had an entire setup, and families were coming in, filling out surveys, and getting what they needed and going back to their homes. So I would recommend some assistance to those organizations, which is part of a normal process. It will phase out over time once more resources come into play, but they do need some support. And secondly, of course, I think the programs that emerge to support directly the families impacted has to come from data, and we are actively collecting that data. So we do have just over $3 million available in the contract that we currently have with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and that could be immediately turned into programmatic funds to support any of these purposes. But happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Kuyo. Appreciate you coming. Questions, trustees? Trustee Galutera.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I know that there's a category of Native Hawaiian.
Yes.
Do these numbers reflect Native Hawaiian families or the entire population?
I believe it's 78% of the respondents identified as Native Hawaiian.
Okay.
So this is a good sampling. In fact, I believe if you click on that, yeah, if you click on the native Hawaiian things, it takes out the non-Hawaiians. So we can
Okay.
have a way of filtering it just to native Hawaiians as well.
Ah, okay. Mahalo.
This dashboard is publicly available on our website, ko'ooahu.org. And yeah, we plan to keep it live as we get data comes in. The website will be updated. But yes, there's a lot of impact to our native Hawaiian community.
Trustee Ahuna?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Kohio, for being here. In the past, we've done a lot of emergency help, and one of the ways that help the community is, when our team and when our workers go out there into the community and start talking to these communities, we can figure out what kind of help specifically. We can hear the mindset or how the communities are feeling. But I'm just saying, I think we should have a day like tomorrow till Friday where everybody in OHA goes and help in communities, and then we assess through our own workers here at OHA. I think we have a great team that can get. I mean, we use all this information, but we gather too more information, and this can help us better help the community. I just think through our own teams, I think we can do this. Thank you.
Mauli Ola Boardroom. Great experiences today, seeing firsthand, boots on the ground. And speaking of boots, stuff that we take for granted. We showed up in rubber boots. We were prepared. When we went to Auntie Blanche's place, saw Auntie being walked out with rubber slippers in 2 feet of water.
Right.
Disheartening for sure. But realizing the widespread impact, right? Prior to going out yesterday, I had no idea how they were affected. And we had community partners, non-ink, Hawaiian dredging, working around the clock, 24 hours a day, for Auntie guys out there, hui, mahi aina, and nonstop, pumping water out. And they got probably another week or 2 left, just so people can access their kauhale over there. I think, in addition to what you were saying, the short-term, mid-term, and long-term effects, right? We learned about the cesspool impacts yesterday. All that brown water that the kids, and the awareness also, the kids are surfing in the water, being pulled by a truck, and they get the surfboards tied to the back. It's dangerous. We met an auntie yesterday who runs a nonprofit out in Kolapoko, and she basically went to help. And the picture that went viral that you shared, and many people shared, of the auntie in her hospice bed, and the grandson, I think, standing over her, and the water was right there, and they decided to just act, because between hospice and Hawaii Medical Services, where the ambulance or the emergency rooms, whatever, once you touch hospice, that's it, and so they were caught, but the family needed to act. She went in there, she had an open wound, very, very small cut, infected, she almost died that night. And so that's the kind of things we learned that night. So the awareness, stuff that we don't normally think about, to be prepared for this kind of thing. So working the hub yesterday, we got there. I know you had your checkbook ready, and you asked them, what can we do? And he was ready to write that check. And she said, we need volunteers now. And what did he say? Let's go. We got the crew. Let's go. We're signing people in. Sure, guys was carrying boxes. Right? Your team was carrying boxes, loading up cars, sorting through things. And so that's the kind of impact that just yesterday alone had. And so I think we didn't even make it to Wailua yesterday, right? It was a full day. We couldn't even get out there, let alone the neighbor islands, which we're going to rely on the neighbor island trustees to assess that as well, and then bring that back to the board. But thanks for what you guys do. Mahalo.
Trustee Hina or Kaka? I have a question then, Kuhio. So data obviously is really important, and this dashboard that is a live, living, breathing resource that people can go onto your Kaka'o Oahu website and take the needs assessment right now. I'm assuming that's what's populating this.
Yes.
Yeah. So we also have, and council has been involved in registering Hawaiian Registry Program applicants even before the EOLA program. So one of the things, and administration will talk about that, is we just said, give us all HRP registered Native Hawaiians in these zip codes from Wailua to Waikane, and just come up with a snapshot of how many people are registered in these areas. How can we reach out to them? I know administration is working on that now. Obviously, if you're in the Otake camp, the Haleiwa area, the Wailua area, it's almost near certainty that this has affected you. So whether it's whatever number we have, and I think the admin is going to report on that, I mean, that's a way that we can get help into their hands pretty quickly.
Okay.
But having been involved in Lahaina and the council, this is not your first rodeo in terms of disaster relief and mobilizing community and meeting the moment. In your experience, where and what can OHA be doing right now? The council has its own fundraising effort. Hawaii Community Foundation has its own fundraising effort. OHA has resources that we have dedicated to this type of moment for our beneficiaries specifically. Any suggestions?
Yeah, what I would say, Chair, is, well, first of all, I do want to point out that as we went to different communities, we recognized that every community had unique needs. Some had cesspool issues where they were overflowing and mixing in with the floodwaters. Some just needed help unclogging debris. Others were very self-sufficient, Laie. You know, they had their whole mobilization of the LDS Church. So every community was unique, and so trying to build a program that's across the board is going to be challenging unless you really get data samplings from all the different communities. But based on our experience, you know, the first step is there's a huge, everybody wants to help, and trying to organize that help can be challenging. But there's core organizations on the ground that have some capacity, and what they need is just resources, financial resources. I do think that it's important for our Hawaiian organizations to have a degree of presence too, because the next phase after the immediate stuff is going to be navigating the myriad of applications that are going to come. And that's why we launched Kako'o Maui, which was to help them. There's trust issues with federal government, with state government. And so having them navigate insurance forms and various papers is not easy. And so I think that's another way that OHA could support, is helping these families navigate all of the application processes that they're going to be facing. So a resource hub, a trusted resource hub where FEMA is in that hub rather than them going to the Fed. So it's just creating an environment in which they feel comfortable. And then I think the data will shift over time, but I do think that housing, addressing the housing crisis, people cannot live in those houses under the conditions, many of them. Some can, it's just cleanup, but others, mold will start forming. There was literally waste that was flushing in and out of their house. So they're gonna need housing options. And I believe one of the questions on this survey was about where they're staying. And we see that there's a number that are actually staying in hotels. Covering that, they are offering decent rates to hotels, but if we could offer support to cover those bills for those families, that would be another way I would say for the housing situation. And then I think as the recovery starts to progress, finding the voids in where the state and federal government cannot support, like low interest loans, to help them rebuild would probably be helpful. And you know, the person that has really been helping to design a lot of the programs that we have on Maui is Nick. He's over there. Some of the other initiatives is the Ohana program that we had, where we provided support to families that were hosting other families, because it's a financial burden. Your electricity go up, your water go up, all these things go up. So we would provide support to those families that were hosting other families. It probably would only work in some place like Hawaii, where there's this sense of responsibility in Ohana. But that's what we did on Maui too, is we provided resources to families that were taking care of other families. So programs like that, unique programs that can, you know, like that match the fabric of Hawaii, I think are important. So unique kind of programs.
Is there either right now or in your previous experience, it eventually gets stood up rather quickly, the different nonprofit organizations that all have fundraising efforts, they all touch the community in some way, shape, or form. Is there a collaborative effort between your organization and others where OHA can plug in specifically for Native Hawaiians?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, how has that happened in the past, and what is the likelihood of that rolling out over the next week, a few weeks as we start to recover from this?
I can,
Or is everyone operating in their different lanes and I hate
Well-
to say silos, but
yeah, and I 100% understand OHA's mandate and requirement to support our Native Hawaiian community. They need it. We're functioning as our organization, even though we are a Native Hawaiian organization, in supporting those who need help right now. It's the model of Hawaiians leading and supporting people that are in need. So it's a little different, like when we go out into Hauula or we go to Honolulu and we see an organization that's serving community, we haven't said our resources can only go to Native Hawaiians. It's whoever needs help. And it's Hawaiian resources that are providing that help. And that's what people remember. So for us, that's the approach we've taken. It gets a little challenging when you say it's for Native Hawaiians only, if I'm just being honest. And it's a lot more challenging in terms of filtering it down, just something to consider is you might create division in the greater picture when you say, even though the entire community is impacted, only Hawaiians can benefit from these resources. It might work against us, is all I'm pointing out.
we're good. Appreciate the candor. Trustee Souza?
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that. I know having OHA and CNHA there yesterday, the question was, and we were talking about, assessing, potential funding in the future or whatever it may be. However, OHA can help. And we did make it very clear that OHA's funds need to go to Native Hawaiians. And then we did make that clear to the community. Also, what you touched on earlier was the data aspect of it. Data provides, support to where we can get more funding. You guys can get more funding to continue to assist them in the future. I'll also like to point out that Pony Askew was with us yesterday, as well as Jason Lee. And, Pony's family was impacted by the Wailua floods as well. And so thanks for being with us, Pony. And she's gathered some data for us, this organization as well. But I think just overall, I don't think, Mr. Chair, we should be focusing on a particular zip code. I think at this point, even the nonprofits out there, the boots on the ground, the state, the city, are not able to complete a full assessment of the neighboring islands, or the neighbor islands, the counties. And so I think going into this, if there's a decision that's made today or whenever it is, if we decide to take action, it should be focusing on the widespread impact and the long-term commitment to finding a solution anyway for these communities. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Aquino?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Kuhia, mahalo to you and to Native Hawaiian Council for everything you're doing. I just really appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that you're able to do something that a government agency like OHA cannot do. You can be down there immediately. You don't have to worry about procurement rules. You don't have to worry about sunshine law just to meet and talk about the issue, as we've had to do until this point today. And so you play a very vital role, and I want to see that partnership grow. I also appreciate what you said earlier about the fact that you just help anyone out there who needs help, because that's the Hawaiian way. We have our statutory requirement at OHA to see that funds go only to Native Hawaiians. However, what you said about the Hawaiian way is so very important, and I'm confident that as you distribute to whoever is out there, you're certainly going to meet the goals that we set for funding that goes from us through you. I appreciate that. My question has to do with the suggestion you made that perhaps some of the funding for the Iola Lahui program that has already been transferred from OHA to Native Hawaiian Council perhaps could be used in this emergency. And you recall that OHA set aside about $6.1 million when we entered the federal shutdown to help Native Hawaiians impacted by that, particularly SNAP beneficiaries who do not have keiki at home. And your organization has been instrumental in distribution. Do you have in your head where we are perhaps in terms of the amount that has been distributed? I think we've transferred about $3.11 million to Native Hawaiian Council, and then the fourth tranche would be $950,000.
Yeah.
How much of this has been distributed to beneficiaries?
So we have distributed $2.2 million, and there's 9,000 that are in a queue waiting to be approved. So if you add that together, it's just over 2.2 million. You have remaining in the contract funds 3.28 million. That's programmatic funds that are available that can be reallocated. And yes, I'll acknowledge, I think on the federal support for workers side, things have been relatively smooth in terms of distributing, accessing the people that need help. The SNAP side has been challenging reaching those communities. We have deployed a number of pretty aggressive campaigns, grassroots included, partnering with organizations like IHS. It's just extremely hard to reach populations, which take a lot of groundwork to get to. So those funds have not been moving out as quickly as we'd like them to. But it is available in a contract that we could reallocate to support other pressing issues.
Are you suggesting that there should be a change of priority with that initial disbursement?
Well, I think, Trustee, at the time in which the funds were approved, no one knew how long the shutdown would last. And we were responding to immediate needs that were prevalent at the time. Of course, the government has reopened, at least for that part of things, and SNAP benefits are restored. In fact, they received back payments on the months in which they didn't receive support. So there's no demanding need for them to go out and get a $350 gift card right now. So I think the needs are evolving and the program should be agile in light of that.
Thank you. And what you're suggesting then is perhaps using the funds you have available to you now in the immediate crisis. And is that something that would be built upon by further matching of funds? What do you envision?
I mean, our matching campaigns have been relatively successful. It's a way to double the resources. When we tell the community, hey, like just yesterday, Kaiser Permanente gave us $100,000, and we plan to get that matched. So it just grows the pot of money. This is how it started at our Maui efforts. We started with putting up $50,000, and the fund grew to almost 10 million just by matching corporate donations. So it's very helpful. I don't know how flexible state funds are to do that kind of matching, but nonetheless, any kind of support from OHA would be helpful. I do think, if there is a suggestion, though, I do think that whatever the language that this board approves, allow for some agility as things change. Having to come to the board for revisions in contract language can take time, and oftentimes you want to move quickly based on those needs.
Well, just last thought. I've appreciated through the years that both of us have been committed to accountability, and I know you're committed to showing that funds dispersed have ended up where they need to. But in the midst of all of the emergency we've been through, I imagine that keeping track of the paperwork can be a little bit challenging and validating that recipients were qualified.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts about our efforts to make sure this is all properly audited and reported on?
I think we lean on our experience. There's no question that over the years in our administration of various emergency funds, people have frauded us. There's lessons learned. There's tactics that experience that we've been through have allowed us to prepare for in the future. We have better systems. We have utilizing AI. And there's always going to be someone that's going to come up with something else to try and crook the system. But all we can do is try our best and learn as we go. We're not perfect, but I think accountability is important. Making sure we steward the resources, the donations that we receive is how we can continue to receive donations. So it's just important to us. And all we can do is lean on those experiences and do our best.
Well, Kuhia, I want to thank you and the Native Hawaiian Council's essential role that they're playing at this time. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Trustee Galataire, and then I want to bring up the administration. Trustee Galataire.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Kuhio. Obviously, we have to ask the question, the Native Hawaiian question. First and foremost, we are the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. But that does not preempt us from helping all families. Because when Keakua rains down, he's not picking Native Hawaiians, he's picking everybody. So, in that regard, and I know Hawaiian Council has a list of community groups throughout the Pai'aina that we can mobilize pretty quickly. Okay, so the ultimate question here today, or not ultimate, but an important question is today, is do you have a number to suggest to this board on what we should consider allocating. Plain and simple, a number.
So trustee, I think there's two things the board should consider. One is, again, things have changed. So you do have Native Hawaiian federal workers that have not been paid for months at this point. They are desperately in need to pay their basic rent, utilities. So there is a need there. I can tell you that an allocation of funds to support them would be great. Again, you have about $3.2 million in the contractual funds that we have available to us. So setting aside enough, at least enough to cover what we did the last time for that group would be great. And the balance, I would suggest, go towards this new emerging need. And we, just my opinion, cut off the assistance that we have for SNAP recipients.
Okay, so follow up, please. Okay, so in this particular case, you're suggesting that we embellish the federal program funding
For SNAP.
for
So there's two programs, right? There's the federal worker,
federal workers.
and then there's the SNAP beneficiaries. I think we should cut off the SNAP
Okay.
program. And I think we should revisit the federal workers, because there's a bunch of those under TSA and other that are not being paid right now because of the half shutdown going on at the federal level.
Okay, but that doesn't affect what we're talking about here today,
No.
which is disaster mitigation and support. So do you have a number? Because every day matters. You know, we can't come back next week and say, okay, let's think about this for a little longer, because every
Yes.
day matters. So is there a number that you would suggest?
I would say 2.7 million should be allocated to emergency assistance, and the balance go towards supporting federal workers that are displaced.
So 2.6,
2.7.
2.7, because when Lahaina came about, we put down 6. As I recall. Lahaina.
5.
Oh, Lahaina, okay. Okay, Lahaina was 5. So you think that 5 would be adequate for the entire Pai'aina? Because that was just Lahaina.
I'm just referring to what's available in our contract, trustee, that we can change the program today. That resources that we have control over, I would suggest that's how you divvy it up. Maybe set aside 500,000 to support federal workers that have not been getting paid, and the balance of the resources go to this emerging disaster fund.
I'm just trying to get to an action item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's bring up the admin,
Yeah.
if that's okay. Yeah, I think it's an opportunity to bring up the administration, because trustees, they've been working on this since at least late Friday night and through the course of the weekend. And I believe they have a well-thought-out plan to present to the trustees. So
I'm just gonna wait over there.
what I do think, I think you should stay there because of the recommendation that is, will obviously include Iola. So, trustees, you may have recalled in kind of the opening, justification for why, and it's important for our beneficiaries to know why we utilize a provision in the statute that allows the board to meet in an emergency session that has to meet a high bar and a high threshold. There are essentially 3 buckets of resources that we could potentially use to support the 2 levels of aid that are required. One is obviously the Ola Hui fund that has been operating since late fall. The second is, if you'll remember, on the 30th of June, when we passed the budget, we allocated just under $500,000 in each fiscal year to the Emergency Relief Fund. This is exactly what those funds are dedicated and should be dedicated to. And then the third bucket of resources is the Malama Honua Home Repair Program, which we have about $250,000 in for FY26. As you recall, the challenges we've had in the past and the discussion we've had with the program existed around the tax liability that a potential recipient could receive. That is not the case when we have a governor's emergency proclamation, a county emergency proclamation, and potentially a federal disaster proclamation. So it allows us to move quickly and to put the maximum amount of resources in the hands of our beneficiaries without burdening them with the tax liability that the emergency proclamations give us, which Lahaina was an example of that as well. So I'm going to stop there and recognize the administration. I guess we'll lead with Summer to take it from there.
Thank you very much. Mahalo, Chair, Trustees. This action item before you seeks approval to activate OHA's Disaster Aid and Disaster Aid Framework in response to the March 2026 Kona Low events and to deploy up to $4 million in existing encumbered or budgeted funds to support Native Hawaiian households impacted across the Pai'aina. In moments like this, we're reminded that our kuleana is not only fiduciary, it is relational. And when our communities experience harm to aina, to home, and to stability, our response must be timely, coordinated, and grounded in ike, meeting people where they are with dignity and care. What we are seeing across the state is a continuum of need. Families are facing immediate displacement, loss of food and essential goods, and damage to their homes, while others are navigating ongoing economic uncertainty, including disruptions to income. These impacts are layered and they require a response that is both flexible and intentional. The administration's proposal reflects that understanding. It advances a three-part approach that aligns resources across this continuum. First, by redeploying EOLA funds to provide flexible, rapid financial assistance to stabilize households. Second, by activating direct disaster aid grants delivered in-house by OHA administration to address urgent, time-sensitive needs with speed and accountability. And third, by utilizing Malama Honua funds to support home repairs that restore safety, health, and a sense of place during this crisis. This approach builds on what we know works. OHA has consistently demonstrated its ability to respond in times of crises through trusted partnerships, our community-informed delivery, and a commitment to ensuring that aid reaches our beneficiaries in ways that honor their agency and lived realities. At the same time, this proposal upholds our fiduciary responsibilities. It leverages existing resources, operates within defined parameters, and provides the administration with appropriate flexibility to respond as conditions continue to evolve on the ground. I want to close by mahaloing this board for your foresight and intention in building both internal capacity and community resilience. Through your biennium budget allocations, you anticipated the needs of our people, including in times of disaster. And because of that foresight, this agency is positioned to respond in this moment with purpose and readiness. I also want to mahalo the many hands within the agency and our community partners who helped to shape and inform this proposal. It's truly been a kako effort grounded in aloha, guided by care, and strengthened by the palina we hold with the communities we serve. I'm going to have Keishawn speak to a few more details and how this particular proposal speaks to OHA's capacity, internal capacity.
Mahalo, Summer. And first and foremost, I want to mahalo our guest presenters for shedding light on the current situation throughout the state. And I'd like to begin by grounding us in the scope and impact of this disaster. So our initial findings indicate that approximately between 1,000 to 1,600 beneficiaries reside in the most impacted areas, including Haleiwa, Laie, Kahuku, Haula, Ka'ava, Kaneohe, and Waialua. Now, these are not just place names. They represent our kaiulu, our communities, our ohana, our families, and our beneficiaries who are experiencing real disruption, displacement, and hardship. And our BSA team, as Chair had mentioned, has already started the initial contact outreach efforts to the highest impacted areas. And this situation also hits close to home for us as an organization. We have OHA staff who have been directly and deeply affected by the recent flooding events. And as we move forward in discussion today, I ask that we keep both the data and the human impact in mind. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Pony, who, like many in our community, have been personally impacted by these events. And I appreciate her willingness to be here today to help guide us through the administration's proposal. Mahalo. Pony, take your time.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Trustees. Mahalo for the urgency in convening today and for your continued leadership and attention to what our communities are experiencing in real time. From yesterday's outreach across Windward and North Shore and time spent on the ground in Wailua, I want to focus on what we're seeing at the household level and how we are positioned to respond. And I really want to pause and take a second to just kind of echo what Summer said. For us to move so quickly in somewhat of an agile way as a state agency, we should be very proud of today. Agencies, especially like OHA, have a reputation of not being able to move in this way. And the leadership and foresight that has been set to allow us to move in the way that we're moving just, what is it, days, a week turnaround is commendable. And our Lahui should be very proud of the way that we're moving in this respect today. What we're seeing is not just storm damage, it is layered impacts of effect in daily living. Yesterday in our tours, we saw cesspools and waterway systems that are impacted, creating ongoing sanitation concerns, displaced families without stable living, temporary living conditions, loss of essential household appliances, especially things as simple as washing machines in rural communities, making it difficult to maintain hygiene and normal routines. Beneficiaries have to drive from Hau'ula to Kailua just to wash their clothes. Medical needs that are present but not always visible, access to medications, equipment, continuity of care for kupuna and vulnerable individuals, and food loss due to power outages combined with uneven access to food support, and in some areas I'd even call emerging food deserts. At the same time, cleanup is happening in Wailua. This past weekend, what I saw was community organizations stepping in. Neighbors helping neighbors and strong engagement across our communities. There is real effort on the ground and people are showing up. But what is clear is recovery is not happening evenly. Some communities are moving forward with support while others are still in early stages of cleanup, slowed by limited resources or harder to reach due to rural conditions and vulnerable populations. And when we step back across the system, there's a strong activity across the state, organizations, and community networks. Resources are moving and support is reaching communities. What's the turning point here for us, and yesterday reinforced this, is that these impacts do not show up as a single need. They show up as across a continuum. So there's immediate hardships, there's urgent disaster needs, and longer-term repair and recovery. And importantly, this is exactly how this action item is structured today. So the action in front of us is to activate this continuum of support. We do want to set aside $300,000 to address the needs of federal furloughed employees and deploy an emergency relief plan through a three-pronged approach already outlined in the action item. To piggyback what Summer shared, we really are looking at this EOLA emergency aid redeployment. It allows us to use remaining encumbered EOLA funds with Hawaiian Council to provide essential needs support, income bridge support for DHS workers, Second, we have the disaster aid, as Summer shared, gives us an in-house pathway to start supporting our beneficiaries. My grandmother's house was damaged in Wailua, flooding in the yard, leaks in the house, and I would call us blessed to have just those damages. So the Malama Honua Home Repair Grant is something that we can use quickly to respond to that. And then lastly, leveraging on our strengths through the efforts in Kana'aho's program and allocating funds for in-house deployment of support is also something that we can do quickly and really build upon all the work that's been done over the past, well, it's been years now since Kana'aho. And deploy this funds to our beneficiaries. So, sorry, I got a little derailed there. So in closing, yesterday what we saw is that the need is real. The need is also layered, it's uneven, and what this action item provides is a response that allows us to move in that layered approach. It's practical and we're ready to move. And I also want to just share that, you know, as a administrative team, we are already working at and sort of like a project management group in-house, which I'm really proud to be part of along with my team, to also look at how we can start aggregating and deploying just information and resources to our beneficiaries, because there's so much good work going on, and that's just another step that we're taking beyond the funds that we're asking for in this action item today. So mahalo.
Okay, trustees, so I'd like to open up to questions for both the administration, and we have an action item in front of us and a proposal for proposed action. So I guess my first question would be just to take advantage of Kuhio being here. So the first and second buckets of the action item. One is to, concerning the Iola Fund, is to activate $300,000, Kuhio, to reactivate the federal Native Hawaiian Civil Service Bridge Fund, support, specifically for Department of Homeland Security employees here in Hawaii. I mentioned some of those sub-agencies that are under DHS. Probably the biggest one in the state is TSA. I know there were TSA recipients in the first tranche back in November. So on average, we distributed $1,200 per individual. Correct. So if we're looking at $300,000, that potentially can cover about 250 to 300 DHS Native Hawaiian recipients. And is that what the administration feels is the approximate number of Native Hawaiian DHS active civilian employees that have, and I just want to remind, this is day 40 of the government shutdown, and come Friday, when the Congress is scheduled to recess for the Easter break without addressing this issue, DHS and TSA workers will miss their third paycheck on Friday. So they're at a critical need right now, many of these families. So
our internal research and evaluation PIA came up with a data-informed estimation. It's upwards of 250, anywhere between 250 at the top level, 300. So if we were to sort of maximize the number of applicants who are likely to avail themselves of the program, it would start to reach 300. But we built in 300,000 to give us the wiggle room, the discretion to meet that moment, or to not have too much excess or surplus if all of those individuals, don't decide not to utilize the fund. So 300,000 is a value that we arrived at, informed by our best data, and also affording us sufficient discretion, affording our partners at Hawaiian Council sufficient discretion to also, have some cushion.
And maybe this is a Nick question too, but
Yeah, 'cause-
how quickly can you turn this on and identify DHS
Yeah.
employees?
So it's funny, he actually put this data together before we got here. I guess he was assuming it would be asked, but we did award 149 DHS employees that meet the criteria.
Okay.
118 of them were TSA. So those, we already have their information. We could
So
just,
you can contact them in the next 24 hours.
or we could just send them the check if that's the board's desire. They already qualify. If they're still, I guess we should verify that they're still there. But separate to that, we already have their information. So that's about 125,000 right there that could immediately be deployed.
Okay. Okay, so there's 300,000 allocated to that.
Correct, and, right, because we're going to uplift this program, announce that the redeployment of funds are available.
Right.
And that particular message, particularly at this is the second shutdown experience. I think people who may not have availed themselves of the first one might very well do so the second time around, understanding that this is a crisis of proportions that, they're more inclined to step up to
Okay,
access.
and then the second part would be, we would sunset the SNAP program
Correct,
effective immediately.
correct.
And we would reallocate $3 million of what's remaining into what? Explain that to the trustees so they clearly understand what that would be for.
So, do you wanna speak to that?
In terms of how you wind it down?
Or sorry, no. So I can speak to that. So the $3 million balance would be available for distribution to flood-impacted households, particularly looking at those in the high-impact designated areas. But to Trustee Souza's point, a Pai'aina-wide effort at this point in time, informed by good data on the ground that's evolving. We heard from the director of HAIMA who verified or reinforced that they too are in the active data collecting stage. We don't want to make pronouncements that might evolve or change over the upcoming days when we have better data. So this allocation would be reserved though for flood impacted victims. The manner in which that gets distributed, sort of the parameters of those distributions will be informed in real time over the course of the next few days. But the allocation itself would be reserved for flood victims of the Kona Low disaster.
Kohio, how would you envision, this is gonna take a little bit to stand up as you continue to get data in, as the state, county, federal agencies are doing their assessments, right? So we're not talking rapid, immediate distribution, but a more prolonged effort. How do you envision this $3 million being able to be used most effectively?
I mean, this is talking on the spot, but I kind of mentioned in my earlier comments, I think it should be a two-pronged approach. One is to allocate a percentage of those resources, $100,000 to provide immediate support to the ground troops, the ones on the ground doing work. And then the balance, weighting data to determine the most effective programs. And as I shared, I think we're going to find every community has its unique needs, and so programs should be tailored based around those needs per community. So I would say a little bit for now, just to support those that need help that is doing the work, and then the balance created once we get a little bit better data sampling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. Maybe this is a group question, and specifically, Kuya, if you could touch on this as well. How often could the board receive updates in terms of incoming data and what disbursements are looking like?
We have dashboards that is available to the OHA administration, which we could extend to you as well. Just like the dashboard that we just saw, it'll be updated regularly. So you can look at what people are needing and where we are in the disbursement of funds. So I think that's just something we can make available to the board.
Mm-hmm. And I would like it, if this is how we are going to go forward, that this information also be shared, not just on our social media, but throughout media, with the news stations, with the radio stations, so it broadens the reach, so that there is further awareness that this is available to our Native Hawaiian community, and that those that are trying to help the Native Hawaiian community, that this information be properly dispersed in a timely manner, so that they, one, know they're aware that it is available, and two, they know where to go for that and how they can apply and how they qualify.
Thank you, Trustee Akaka. I'll go to Chair Emerita, just in 1 second, Chair. I wanted to, some of trustees may not also know as well, but correct me if I'm wrong, but the current contract was scheduled to terminate on the 6th of May.
Is that right? Yes.
There is a provision in the contract to extend it for 12 months, should the board want to. But prior to these catastrophic weather events and the unexpected second shutdown of DHS, the work of the council, unless the contract was extended, would have sunsetted on the 6th of May. And the balance of the funds we're currently sitting on, I'm assuming it's a little under $3.3 million, is what, we had turned off the spigot for federal employees. So they were pretty much doing the best effort they could to disperse SNAP recipients. And as Kuhio mentioned earlier, that is difficult to do. So that's the moment we're in now concerning our current EOLA fund. That doesn't touch the emergency relief aid or the Mauli Ola. That's specific to EOLA. And I wanted to make sure that we were well aware of that.
And then if I may respond just also to, directly to Trustee Akaka's question. We have a cadence of reporting out the performance of the EOLA program in SITREP reports. So I believe the current cadence is every other week, and we can continue to report on that tempo and include any of these updates that are related to the flood victim distribution. So we have a built-in system. It's informed by the dashboard that Hawaiian Council has, but it's also customized to meet what we believe the OHA trustees are wanting to understand in more detail.
I know, Kuhio, your dashboard is focused solely on Oahu, right?
Yeah, currently.
Currently. I would imagine you would expand that statewide.
Totally.
Yeah, okay. Chair Emerita? Chair Emerita Lindsay?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to Kuhio for all the work that I've seen him do. I want to say that, yes, we do need equal attention on the neighbor islands. As you well know, we've had homes washed down Iao Stream here on Maui. And, I've seen a little talk about damage at Kula Sand, but I don't think people know how extensive that damage was. The top roof caved in, and they had to remove patients. I happened to ride on the airplane on Monday coming over to Oahu with someone from the air helicopter. He said they removed 60 patients. They didn't even have time to contact their families. The families didn't know where they were taking them. They took them to Oahu and to different care homes to keep them safe. But there's extensive damage up at Kula Hospital, separating the families from their families that were taken away in an emergency. So I think that the neighbor islands have equal emergency situations. I watched TV last night and Molokai was slammed. I mean, and it's all in the low area where our people are. So I think that we need to be fair. However, we need to be mindful of how we're going to give out this money. It should be within the same process like we did the fire, so that we can be accountable for all the money that we give out. Because when audits come in, we're going to be affected again. But I think this is a good cause, and I'm in favor of it. But let's put together the process so that the trustees can see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Merida. And Kuhio, you could easily pivot. I'm looking at the OHA Emergency Relief Fund right now. You could easily repivot that to this
Totally.
new proposal, statewide dashboard needs assessment, and start pulling in information from the neighbor islands as well, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, the dashboard that we created was done over the weekend, so
Yeah.
we can definitely
Yeah, yeah.
do it in
Okay.
a short period of time.
Trustee Lapa.
My question, especially for the board, is we use or exhaust all of these monies for emergency relief purposes, obviously. I'm looking forward ahead, meaning when there are potential storms, like what James Burrow mentioned earlier regarding the hurricane season and so forth, will we be ready for that? Will we have funding for that and so forth? I mean, as we all know, things pop up and we need to be ready for that. But that was just to thinking further ahead, that's all.
Trustee Volunteer.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm glad that we're reappropriating instead of finding new money, right? So this reflects the administration's view on just the data that has been given thus far. And that's the 3.06
Correct,
to cover the existing data,
correct.
which reflects Oahu.
Actually, our EOLA program is a statewide program.
So it says it's a damage statewide.
So Hawaiian Council, yes, is positioned to be able to assess the damage statewide. Our EOLA funds are also identified by state, so
Yeah.
we have accurate data around Pae'aina-wide distribution of those funds.
So Kuhio, 2 weeks later, are we able to receive data that actually truly identifies the need?
I think so, trustee. The survey was sent out, I think, on Sunday. We've got over 100 responses, and now we've integrated into the community hubs that are doing distribution. So data will start to roll in a lot quicker. And I think a good sampling is probably a couple, 200-300 people. That'll be a good sampling. I think we're at 100, so we'll get there pretty quickly. So I'd say 2 weeks is a good time frame.
Okay, so just for the administration's consideration, I wouldn't want something like 3 million to stop us anywhere. We should be able to come back a month later, or 3 weeks later, or 2 weeks later, with added data that would provide us an initiative to support even further than what we already have. So this trustee considers this a starting position, if you will. So just kind of bear that in mind, that we want to support more. I do. I'm sure my colleagues want to do that as well. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the budget. So as the administration has proposed, and I'm looking at number 2, is to activate $410,407 in FY 2026, essentially grant in aid as part of the disaster aid that we had allocated. And in the, maybe not necessarily proviso, but in the language description of that funds, it is to be used for disaster relief aid to recover financially from the impact of a disaster, especially when the federal or state government declares their location to be a major disaster area. And to Trustee Alapa's point, we are essentially almost in the last quarter of fiscal year 2026. For fiscal year 2027 starts 1 July, this board approved $460,407 for the next fiscal year's hurricane fund, emergency fund, so we do have that will be available to us for, potentially future natural disaster events. So we're not spending it all, I guess, is what we would say. How do you envision number 2 working? And then let's get to number 3.
Sure. So I actually want to commend our community engagements, PAIA, and the leadership there, Lisa, Chantel, Ilima, in coordination with our fiscal financial services, PAIA. They actually eagerly stepped up to say, OHA has the capacity to handle this particular distribution in-house. They feel confident in their the experience and the capacity and the HRP agility that they've developed having serviced both the Kona Aho grant and then helping to support internally on the EOLA funds. And so this particular model would be modeled after Kona Aho with some built-in technological advances that will help the team identify and streamline the data that they're collecting from applicants on an individual basis that are very specific to direct OHA's ability to administer direct to beneficiary distributions. We have, as you know, typically erred on the side of distributing funds through nonprofit organizations and have been less nimble in our ability to directly provide distributions to beneficiaries individually or per household. Kona Aho taught us that we do have the capacity and that there were learnings that could be integrated and create for more efficient systems. So the community engagement PIA resoundingly said that they want to and they would like to administer this fund and have the capacity to do so in short order and in order to build their own pilina with community directly.
You want to talk about the third tranche, the Malama Honua program, that is anticipated to also be an in-house distribution?
Sure. So, fortuitously, again, I commend the board for identifying what have been, what I think beneficiaries have surfaced as a desire for more support in the home repair space. And originally, this home repair program, Lāma Honua, had always contemplated providing anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000 in funding specific to home repairs that went to sort of habitability issues, right? This particular flood event has created a situation where not only do we have a large number of our population in need of habitability-related repairs, but the benefit of an emergency declaration that now lifts the tax implications, the tax burdens from being able to distribute these monies more directly and not necessarily through a third party that would take a cut of the administration fees. So what we're able to do is maximize the entirety of that funding, leaning heavily on our internal teams. The fact that $10,000 to $20,000 remains the intention of this grant means that we're helping an additional 20 to 25 households, and again, the grants team and the S&I team responsible for this believe that they have the capacity to support that distribution. So all of these, different programs, the synergy and the ability to leverage what we've already learned from other services and funding opportunities is really informing our ability to be responsive at this moment.
Okay. Yeah, Trustee Gautier.
Thank you. This has to do with it's a sidebar question, but do we have information about whether charter schools have been affected by this? And how do we address that? Is it a part of this response system if there is damage done to Hawaiian charter schools?
So we don't have that information presently. I imagine that, schools across the Paeaina have suffered some kind of impact. This program is designed for individual households. So Malama Honua itself would not speak to a charter school need. And, but, it's possible that other of our funds, whether it's the OLA fund or the disaster aid grant fund, could take a look at that. But at this point in time, that kind of institutional help isn't part of the disaster concept, disaster relief concept. Correct, we're still early in the assessment.
Trustee Akaka.
I did see on the news that there have been many schools affected on Hawaii Island. I've seen a number of schools in the Konawaina area. I want to say Hukai Malino. And these are Hawaiian immersion schools. These are English-speaking schools, and I have to imagine charter schools as well. So when you look at the damage, what happened at Noelani on Manoa, you see the immense flooding in cafeterias and classrooms, and you have to imagine that extends to libraries and the spaces in which there are paper goods, there are books. So there is going to be some short to long term damage, and how do they get it to a place in which they can bring the students back? I know that some schools, the students won't be returning this week. So what does that look like in terms of the impact for the family household, to the parents that or guardians that have to go back to work? I think those are some of the lingering questions. And I also wanted to touch on what Pony had mentioned as well earlier is hygiene. There's certain basic needs in terms of those that have, they've been truly affected, washing machines. And I think, as with many local families, when your electricity goes out, one of your first thoughts is, oh no, my freezer. Oh no, my refrigerator. And you have a certain amount of food in there, and how do you handle that? How do you preserve that? How are you able to have it where there's less poho? So I think that's part of the concern, and we have those, as it was mentioned, that work with TSA and who are federal government employees that are not getting paid properly. So there is that true concern in terms of, where does my food come from? Where does my next meal come from? So I think we really are looking at the most basic of needs that we need to help meet here. But in terms of the long-term effect, I think this is going to be a long, ongoing conversation, and that we need to budget this as so.
Kuhio, obviously you have the internal capacity and bandwidth now because you're still running the EOLA program. So capacity-wise, and I don't think this is something that's going to be distributed immediately. I think it's going to take time as the situation evolves, and as beneficiaries reach out, as people engage your dashboard, as the public awareness campaign gets out there. But do you feel like you have the internal capacity to execute this for OHA? As we also look at, do we have the internal capacity to execute the disaster relief aid and the Malama Honua program in-house?
I mean, I would say my staff they're just as crazy as I am, but they up to the challenge. Obviously we are contemplating our own spend down of our resources too, and what programs might emerge from that.
Right.
But it's not a big pivot, I would say, for us.
Okay.
To be honest, I think we'll just use the resources and capacity that currently supports EOLA and move it to this. We also have, of course, our Kako'o Maui team up on Maui. There's
Right.
17 full-time employees that could easily be
Activate them.
correct.
Yeah.
They're not currently touching the EOLA program, only through being an extended resource. So
Yeah.
that's another capacity that we have.
Not to toss in a layer of bureaucracy, but the Hawaiian Registry program is obviously was a very important trigger for EOLA, right? And in terms of qualifications and verification, and you want to get resources into people's hands as quick as they need them, and not say, hey, hold on, you got to fill out the form first. We got to check your birth certificate. But where's the balance in that? Because we do want to capture this information, and I will say that the efforts that we've done, even over the last year and half a year with HRP, have allowed us to pull real-time data to know how many people are HRP beneficiaries in Haleiwa, in Ha'ula, and so this is data that's very important to us too. What do you strike the balance in that?
I don't think, I mean, I don't know, I'm going to speak for the staff, but I don't know if that was a big burden.
Okay.
I think it was more of a, I don't know, I support the idea. We need a role.
Yeah.
We need to know where our people are.
Yeah.
We need to be able to support them in real time. I think it's an important for both sides.
Okay, so that could continue to be a requirement
yeah,
of
I
the,
Nick, do you object? Okay, so yeah, you don't object, so we're good.
that was tepid, Nick. Okay. Trustee Aquino? I'm sorry, Trustee Souza? You had your hand up. Go ahead, Trustee Souza, then Trustee Alapa. Unless you want to defer to Trustee Alapa, since she's ready to go. Okay, Trustee Alapa.
Quick question regarding the pulling of funds from different departments. What about the CIP? I know we have about several million in there. Have we considered that?
Sorry, we haven't evaluated that particular program. There was a deadline that was already imposed, and we have applicants who are now in the second phase of that vetting process. So to pivot the monies would disrupt the cadence of that program. The one thing that I will say, though, that we are doing is that some of those nonprofits are very much entrenched in communities, helping support the recovery efforts in their, place-based areas, and have asked, actually, administration, Chantel, just this morning asked for a short extension to allow those nonprofits to focus on meeting the needs of their communities, flood-impacted residents, and allow for a 2-week extension on sort of fulfilling the second phase of their application. And I, in our determination, granted that. So that particular program is already underway, and again, if
Are
we
all
were.
the funds used already?
No,
For
so
mobiles? Okay.
we're in the process of vetting applicants who met the submission deadline, the packet deadline, passed the initial eligibility criteria, and are now in the second phase of vetting for, more detailed information about their proposals.
But just to clarify, ultimately, the administration's, and isn't it a third-party screening or it's
An
a
evaluation team that
non-OHA
is
evaluation
outside, an
team.
external evaluation team.
So all of those recommendations come to this table for a final approval, just like Ho'okokoa. So, but good question. Trustee Souza.
Mauli, Mr. Chair. Maybe we're not there with yet. Maybe it's a premature question, but this is regarding the process, right? There's 3 different sources where the funds are coming from. And so, EOLA, the redeployment of $3 million, the disaster aid grants, and the Malama Honua repair. Is an applicant able to receive all 3? Because I know OHA will be handling it in-house, the last 2, number 2 and 3, and the third, number 1 will be potentially continuing on with Hawaiian Council.
We are in the process. That's an excellent question. Our teams who are helping to design and inform what the final program will look like I think ideally we're not trying to create overlapping or competing interests among the different programs. So ideally, each one would target a specific beneficiary pool that isn't otherwise covered by one of the other programs, in order to, again, extend the breadth of our assistance. I think out in community, and I've heard it at the table, people regularly ask trustees, ask our staff, ask leadership, what is OHA doing what does OHA do for us? And I think the broader we can reach our community where they're at across the Pai'aina, the better. So, spreading the eligibility to avoid overlapping where possible is probably speaks to that particular ask.
Thank you.
Kuhio, you said, and I apologize, I just went off your website, which was a little north of 222,000. But obviously you have your match, so you said it was over 600,000.
Yeah.
How are you envisioning deploying those assets, and when are you going to start deploying those assets?
Well, I would probably, it'll be derived based on the data as well, but perhaps it would be in areas that OHA resources are not supporting. So once we see data and we see the picture and you decide to point your resources there, then we'd likely look at ways to fill the other gaps.
And based on Lahaina and other disaster, natural disaster programs that Hawaiian Council has been a part of, you know, you started fundraising on Friday. The major weather event happened Thursday night, Friday through the weekend. Today is Wednesday. In past practice, as these funds have accumulated, and I've got no doubt it's going to be north of $1 million probably within about a week. When do you, in terms of timing, look at money's moving and it's starting to go out?
Well, we're already starting to deploy. Just yesterday, we gave out $21,000 to those organizations on the ground. So we're already cutting checks. Just what I learned is you resource those that are passing out the toilet paper and the water and the food. Just give them resources so they don't need to fundraise and do the work. So that's partly what we're looking at right now. And that gives us time and presence, buys us time as we assess data, and also gives us presence, which is what is necessary. And that's what community wants to see, which is similar to what I'm recommending to OHA is I think the $100,000 allocation to support nonprofits gives you presence and allows us to collect data and do a deeper dive.
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea of, I watched Spotlight yesterday, and Senator Awa was on talking about the North Shore, and Ryan Suji asked him point blank, like, what is the number one thing Haleiwa Wailua needs right now? He said they need water. And that was his answer, partly because they were being advised to boil water in certain parts of the North Shore, because the water supply system had to shut down their pumps because of electricity issues, which prevented the filtration. You had raw sewage leaking and cesspools leaking, septic tanks leaking. So there's even parts of the North Shore today where you cannot still drink water. You need to boil your water, or you need to consume bottled water. So that was something that he said we need right now. And we've seen all the images of people passing out bottled water at different distribution sites on the North Shore. I'm just thinking, how can we make an impact quickly on what people need the most?
You know, I mean, there's all kind of different ways. I do think that those groups that are on the ground are the ones running the donation hub. So people are dropping off to them. So water's getting out. They could buy what they need with resources that aren't being donated. The other thing is, the Iola program, we were giving out these gift cards to SNAP recipients. We have, I don't know, $20,000 in gift cards that we've already purchased that can immediately be deployed to these people needing support. It's Foodland times gift cards. So that's another way, is send your outreach team out. When you see a Hawaiian standing in line, give them the card. Make sure they know it's from OHA. So there's immediate ways that, right off the top of my head, is these gift cards we got, send the staff out to give them out to our Hawaiians that are in line waiting for support.
So that is about 60 gift cards.
I don't know, Nick, how much do we have in gift?
60 gift cards at 350 gift cards, 21,000. So those are 60 $350 gift cards that we could put in people's hands immediately.
Yeah.
And that is a product of the current Iola program.
Correct. Those are funds you're reallocating to this program anyway.
Okay. Well, that's one way.
218 gift cards we have right now.
Okay.
Available.
218? 218 gift cards. The organizations, I guess there would be distribution hubs that we would consider funding. How would you go about that?
Well, that was actually quite helpful. Like, even Keone was there. He was checking people in. He was on the computer helping them answer the questionnaire. But you get to really understand people. You get to meet them. You get presence. If you see one Hawaiian in line, give them one gift card. I think that huge impact. Have your staff in uniforms, OHA uniforms, that could help give you some presence. Was that a question? Okay.
Yeah. Tony, you were out on the weekend when we spoke. Is that what Kuhio is suggesting? Is that something that you think would be well received and helpful?
I think there's a couple approaches that we could look at. We could definitely do direct to our beneficiaries. I think it would be appreciated, just like it was yesterday, and I sensed it was really well appreciated just to have our bodies in the community and connecting and talking. Chair, I think reaching out directly to homes as well, where the folks aren't going out or getting out kupuna, right, within the area would be one well-received and appreciated approach. But I think as well, a takeaway that, you know, in the EOLA research that we did is also looking at partnering with Native Hawaiian serving organizations that are providing food support, and people like Waianae Comprehensive Center and those sort of organizations as well. Not only are within our concentrated communities of Native Hawaiians, but have found ways to also duplicate the funds that we're giving to them, while also circling back and providing supports to our mahiai and our farmers in coordinating efforts to purchase food and distribute it that way as well. So we have a couple of scenarios we can look at that I think would all be tremendously impactful to those that have been impacted by the flood.
But I guess I'm thinking, and thank you for that answer. I guess I'm thinking back to Kuhio. So you have a, can you please keep it down? You have a distribution hub in Hauula, right? I don't know who that organization is. Maybe you do, or maybe, and we're talking about giving them $10,000 immediately so that they can buy water or food or whatever they need, because they know immediately what their community needs and what is coming into this hub. That's what you're recommending. Okay, so if we were to adjust the staff's recommendation to allocate X amount of money for the council through the networks you have and these hubs you have, not just on the North Shore, but throughout the state as well,
Yeah.
to cut a certain amount
Yep.
to get it into their hands so they can make the
Yep.
impact.
So on behalf of OHA, we make the donation to these organizations on the ground that are collecting supplies, that are having to pay for PPE, for all of the essential needs that they have to support the community, while we do our job of seeing how we can channel the greater resources.
Okay. How does the administration feel about that?
I support generally. I think I caution that the ask today was for a clear set aside for the 300,000 to address the original design of EOLA and help furloughed workers in TSA and DHS, and the remainder to give both the administration and its working relationship with this community partner the flexibility to be responsive to whatever the data informs. I would think that that flexibility includes a $100,000 allocation to nonprofits. And if we get into the practice of having to make that kind of determination with that level of specificity here at the table, then I worry that every single time we're making an allocation that isn't precisely defined here at the table, where our hands are tied.
Yeah.
So if left to me, I would have used similar discretion, informed by the discussion that happened at this table about your receptiveness to supporting nonprofits at the outset of this recovery effort for a limited time using appropriate, safeguards. That's the only,
Sure.
I support in theory.
Yeah.
But we are also really mindful of having the flexibility to pivot and respond to the needs on the ground with our discretion, which I think we've demonstrated is definitely informed by data, definitely informed by cross-PIA collaboration, and also informed by our partnerships with the community organizations.
I mean, what I'm thinking is to try and, meet both objectives. Is that if the board would consider as part of that $3 million pivot, that we would intend $100,000 of that to be able to go to in whatever distribution amount it is. Could be 5,000, and we could do it 100 times or whatever amount would be able to be distributed through the council based on data and based on need. But that would be allocated for that, and then we would delegate the authority and the discretion to the administration to make that call. I mean, that's my thought, because I do think there's value in supporting hubs and organizations that are actively distributing now, even if it's a little bit. So that's my one thought.
The resources that we give to them, in addition to just supporting them, also gives us the ability to work closer with them to get those need assessment forms collected, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, I mean, I tell them, everyone that we've met yesterday, I explained to them the needs of collecting the data. And then I give them the $5,000. And so that's what I did. It was $5,000 grants that I was giving out yesterday to all the nonprofits. And I said on every occasion that this is because of the partnership that we have with the Office of Foreign Affairs. So they don't even know the difference between the money that's already gone out. So it is our intention to show unification. I guess I'm pointing that out as well. But my point is, it's helping on in a number of different ways. It's resourcing them so they can get what they need. It's giving us presence as we get our act together on how we're going to disperse our funds. It's also helping us collect data, because data is important for us as we make decisions, and they're the ones that's going to help us get the data.
Yeah. Oh. Chair Merida.
I just want to confirm that I'm in total agreement with all this needed help for our people. But I want to make sure that we are accountable for all our monies in spite of, you know, I know sometimes you can get carried away. I wish I was like Kuhio them, where you can just write one check on the ground, but OHA cannot. And that's what I want to make very clear between the difference between Hawaiian Council and OHA. We cannot just write checks on the ground. We got to be accountable for every money that we give out. But it's good cause, so I'm not looking down on it. Just reminding us that we need to be accountable for everything. Thank you.
In reference to the gift cards that you mentioned and that it's from OHA, have you ever thought about, those gift card sleeves that we could have OHA's name printed on it? That would be super amazing. And if an identity number that we know it went to this specific entity would be amazing.
Sure, we can definitely look into that. Little envelopes, yeah.
Okay, trustees, any more questions? Go for it, Trustee Kina.
Thank you. Just to help me visualize, with the EOLA redeployment of funds and also with the aid for disaster, about how many households will we be helping, and about what's the average contribution we're making or grant we're making to each household?
Sure. So in the three, if we were to allocate, this is rough math, because now we're potentially discussing reserving about $100,000 from the $3 million currently in for the furlough, not the $100,000 for nonprofit assistance, immediate assistance. Then if we were to maintain a $1,200 award for every applicant, we'd be helping about 2,500 recipients. And if we increase that by a few $100s to 1,500, it would be around 2,000 recipients. So that's how many potential households we could be helping with the remainder of the funds if the funds were distributed at those levels, right? We're still open to receiving data to understand best how much each distribution should be based on need, but that's a rough estimate. And then you asked about the $410,000. 341 individuals or households would be helped if we maintained a similar $1,200, $1,500 distribution.
Okay, thanks. That helps out because that's a significant portion of the Native Hawaiians who would have been impacted. So I appreciate any program that can get to them, identify them, and get to them what they need. That's very important. Just a last minor question, I guess, Summer. Are we adjusting or modifying the contract amount to Hawaiian to HC?
At this point in time, I think a shared understanding is that the monies could be pivoted, utilizing the, the understanding of the contract terms as currently contemplated. The one change might be to extend the deadline for closing of that particular contract. May 6th may be too soon to be able to address the flood victim needs. But in our initial talks, but I will let Kuhio speak to those details. In our initial talks, the repivoting, the utilizing of current staffing that he has dedicated to the federal shutdown effort could be repurposed with relative ease to the flood impact victims. Is that correct? You can.
Yeah, trustee, I mean, yes, we plan to stick within the $6.1 million contract value. I mean, the only thing that comes to mind, if I'm being completely transparent, is the contract was designed for administration over a 6-month period of time. And so the administrative funds associated with that degree of programming, there might be more administrative burden because we're now looking at a program that would last upwards of a year. So, I mean, the good thing is we are raising money to support our various efforts. So maybe it's just a conversation that I didn't have enough time to digest with OHA.
I understand, and I appreciate the spirit in which you are proceeding. Yeah.
Chair.
It seems
I'm
very
sorry.
reasonable.
Sorry, Trustee Kino.
That's all. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, Chair Merida?
If I might ask, Summer, could you prepare like a chart of allocation of these benefits for the neighbor islands? I would like to know that Maui is getting its fair share.
Absolutely, we can work on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so would Hawaii and Molokai and Kauai.
Yes,
Mahalo.
across
Yeah.
the state, correct.
I do think, though, if the board pivots in this direction, that we should have a contract amendment that would codify what this board is authorizing, some of the, not concerns, but requests by Trustee Akaka in terms of more frequent reporting, whether it is incorporated into some type of dashboard, the potential administrative costs of extending this beyond the 6th of May. Clearly, it's going to be extended beyond the 6th of May. So either the contract extension could be triggered in the contract, but we should lock that in so the expectations are clear.
Yeah, it's crossing my mind as we discuss all these new programs, new dashboard, maybe another 1 year of service, that really the contract that we currently are operating is based on a 6-month term. And the administrative funds that support that work is based on 6 months. But I can't do the math that fast in my head to figure that out, or even understand what the programs are ultimately going to be yet to determine what an appropriate administrative cost is. So it might be a future discussion.
Yeah, sure. And I'm by no means suggesting we got to stand up some entire electronic dashboard if it's going to cost a lot of money. I'm perfectly fine with a good solid sit rep coming from Keishawn's team, maybe with a little more frequency, but I'm fine with that too.
And Ev just informed also that the current contract is currently set to expire on May 6th, as we know, and it can be extended up to 60 months in 12-month increments. So
Okay.
An extension would be for 12
sure.
months.
Yeah.
I just want to say very briefly, Chair.
Yeah.
I think, Kuhio, didn't we pay you in advance of the expenditure amount,
Correct.
the 10%?
You did, trustee.
Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Mahalo, Chair, for mentioning that. And yes, there was some administrative fee that was fronted because of the expansion of services, as you were talking about. We talked a lot about redesigning of the program today, so we will definitely redesign the SITREP. And I would just like to point out that we have a very close working relationship with the Hawaiian Council, and under the current contract, they are outperforming in terms of communicating to us the data sets. So they've been very accommodating. Every time I email Nick, I'm sorry, Kalamai, but they've been able to deliver on that. And we've been able to do it weekly and every other week. Mahalo.
Yeah. Trustee Akaka.
Yes, and if that data can include visuals, so I think that would be very helpful for us to know where the needs are and pivot as we need to, and what the growing concerns are, because I have to imagine that the needs today are going to be similar as the needs in the future tomorrow. However, as time goes on, I think those needs will evolve over time. So if for the households that are open to have it where there's certain visuals that they can provide and that can be documented and shared with the board, so that we can be better informed on how we need to operate in this, I think that would be quite helpful.
Mahalo, Trustee. Yeah, we'll definitely navigate that with some, sensitivity based upon, the ability for us to show that. And then also include some more visuals, I guess. Mahalo.
Now that I think of it, Senator Awa yesterday, in addition to his first response, which was water, later on in the show, he talked about emergency cash assistance directly to affected families, supporting community distribution hubs that are distributing food. I think he even he named a few of the local boys in that area that are using their own machinery, and he talked about fuel. I'm wondering if the Foodland gift card, they don't do gas at Foodland, yeah. They could use that for fuel, but those are things, right? That
was an interesting one too. We learned yesterday that the gas station, no more gas over there, out in the north side. They ran out of gas.
yeah,
So if you never have some gas in your tank, you're not gonna be able to get to the closest gas station.
right. Okay. Trustee Otero.
Thank you.
Then we'll wrap it up.
Specific to the data, do we have anything that will provide us with information about churches? Have we been, because churches, they have their hubs.
Yep.
They have, this is where the community gets together.
Yeah. We don't, but I will say that just based on interaction that Trustee Susan and I had, I mean, the LDS Church has really stepped up for that community. They are paying for the temporary housing of most of their members in hotels, like the Marriott hotels. Of course, they mobilized their relief societies and missionaries to help with the cleanup. I mean, it almost looks like nothing happened over there in Laie. Whereas you drive in Hau'ula, they all bus up, so I mean, you can see how the church has mobilized in those communities.
So there are ways by which to partner with the churches.
I would say so, and I think they have, yes, there
Yes.
are.
And in particular, the Association of Native Hawaiian
Sure, absolutely.
Evangelical Churches too.
Yeah.
And, okay, I'm just curious, why not toss that on the table?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Last one, and this is, I guess, for the administration. During the federal civil Native Hawaiian civil service distribution, I remember running into a few TSA agents because I practically spend most of my life in airports. So I'm very familiar with the TSA agents here in Honolulu and Hilo. But I remember speaking to a Native Hawaiian TSA agent that didn't qualify because of the 400% federal poverty level restriction threshold we used. Because it's restricted to only DHS, and you have about 150 or so DHS in your database right now, and we're looking at somewhere between 250, 275-ish that the 300,000 would support. And I don't know how my fellow trustees feel about this, but what are our thoughts on removing that 400% federal poverty level, 72,000 single person household restriction, and just basically say, if you are a Native Hawaiian, you're furloughed, you're a federal civilian worker of the Department of Homeland Security, and you have experienced or are experiencing pay interruption, we're here to help. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, we support if the board
Yeah.
is inclined to open it up to that pool.
Because the pool is so small, right?
Correct.
Before, we were talking every agency in the federal government
Correct.
that was closed and shuttered. This is a much smaller pool. And I'm just thinking people that, they're not gonna paycheck on Friday, and it would be great if we could support.
I just want to ask Carla if The numbers, yes. Because I wanted to make sure that the number estimates that we were working with were not necessarily based on that
That
income
threshold, yeah.
threshold, and she's confirming that it wasn't.
Okay,
So,
okay,
yes, we
okay.
have the sufficient funds.
Do we have any other questions, trustees? What I think we should do, what I'm proposing is we take a quick recess. I think we need maybe 10 minutes. I'm sure Kuhio has to move on with his day. What I'd like to do is on page 2 of 8, basically this is the action item, the proposed action. I want to make a couple small tweaks to this. One of them being the federal poverty level piece. I'd like to strike that. And the other piece being the $100,000 allocation toward community distribution hubs. But give the administration the latitude and the flexibility to make the call on where those resources should go, working with the council. And then we'll make sure we're all square on that language, Summer, and then we'll reconvene and I'll read the proposed action into the record, place it on the table for discussion, and then we can take action on it. Is that okay? All right, so let's reconvene at 1:15.
Hey, real quick, what time is it there?
7-8, yeah. I'm just missing trustee Galuteria. He's coming? Okay, great. Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll reconvene the emergency session of the Board of Trustees of the Office of Foreign Affairs. This time, the chair would like to make a motion for the board to consider. The chair's motion is that the Office of Foreign Affairs Board of Trustees approve the activation of approximately $3.96 million in disaster aid and OHA's disaster aid framework to respond to the March 2026 Kona Low weather events, known as the Kona Low, through the following actions. Iola Emergency Aid Funding Redeployment via a contract amendment with Hawaiian Council, contract number 4514, the redeployment of up to $2.9 million in remaining encumbered funds to provide essential needs support to verified Native Hawaiian households within identified areas that were highly impacted by the Kona Low. 2, up to $100,000 in remaining encumbered funds to provide immediate funding support for community resource hubs statewide. And 3, up to $300,000 in remaining encumbered funds to provide income bridge support to verified Native Hawaiian furloughed federal civilian workers who are experiencing pay interruption due to the federal government shutdown affecting the Department of Homeland Security. 2, direct disaster aid grants to OHA beneficiaries, authorizing the use of $410,000 in fiscal year 2026 OHA grants and aid disaster aid budget to provide direct grant payments to verified Native Hawaiian households who resided in identified areas that were highly impacted by the Kona Low. Delegate the authority to the OHA administrator to determine whether a Kona Low disaster aid grant applicant is able to provide the activities proposed in their application for the grant in accordance with HRS 1017 C1D, and delegate the authority to the OHA administrator to award Kona Low disaster aid grants. 3, Malama Honua home repair grants. Authorize the use of $250,000 in fiscal year 2026 Malama Honua budgeted funds to provide between $10,000 to $20,000 grants for home repair services to verified Native Hawaiian households within identified areas that were highly impacted by the Kona Low and who provide a verifiable quote or invoice for home repairs necessitated by the Kona Low. Delegate the authority to the OHA administrator to determine whether a Kona Low disaster aid grant applicant is able to provide the activities proposed in their application for the grant in accordance with HRS 1017 C1D, and delegate the authority to the OHA administrator to award Kona Low disaster aid grants.
So moved.
Trustees, do we have discussion on that motion? Trustee Ahuna.
Yeah, I just wanted to just make something, just ask, just comment, a quick question. When you guys say, affected areas, do you guys have specific affected areas or affected areas from just the storm? It could be anywhere.
I can ask the administration to speak, but I'm assuming, it is statewide affected
Okay.
areas, whether it's in Kula Maui or Wailua or Kona Kakai, Ho'olehua, it is statewide, trustee.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I just
Chair,
wanted to
Chair,
make sure.
Chair Emerita?
Chair, I wanted to ask administration if we have anybody qualified on our staff to verify that these applications can do the work, and because she's going to be given the authority to say yay or nay. So who's going to give that knowledge to her?
Mahalo nui, Chair Emerita. And the answer is yes, we do have the capacity to do so. And the recommendation from our grants team is to treat this as such, as a grants and aid type of deal, where we have a internal panel evaluating those circumstances and making recommendations to the CEO. Mahalo.
Okay. It sounds reasonable. Thank you.
Yep, Trustee Galatera.
Follow up to Chair Lindsay's question, timing. Do we accelerate the process because of this, or does it go through the regular process of timing?
Do you want to answer? You know, we're going to make this a priority of ours and move it with the prudence and the urgency that the moment, warrants. And so we have to assemble our internal panel. We have to go through the procedures and processes that make this possible. But urgency is the spirit in which we'll act.
Thank you, that's the right answer.
I have a question. You know, we have so many things we're doing at OHA, and this team is running and burning the midnight oil, and I know you are, and we so very appreciate your efforts. This is another major thing we're doing. Is there any consideration, not that I would want to contract this, but to bring in like support, a project coordinator, or I don't know if something exists at Remedy, temp staffing, someone that like every day they come to work and this is their only job is this, of course, moving the needle to ensure that the decision makers and the key senior level administration staff can make those decisions, but that this is not another thing that's layered on your plate. I don't know, it's just a thought.
Chair Mahalo for the question, and we would greatly appreciate that level of help because it does help to free up everyone else in the capacity that they need to work and make decisions. A remedy level staff to help with HRP. You know, I'm anticipating that our HRP influx is going to be very large again, so it's going to require, you know, additional hands for that pile specifically.
Just a thought. Summer, you know, I know.
Or temp.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we have a resource.
You allocated just, in your most recent board meeting, the ability for us to have a runway that allows for additional temp higher staffing. We can definitely look into that to prioritize the matter.
Just something to consider.
Thank you.
You know?
Thank you for the option.
Yeah. Okay, trustees, any more discussion?
Chair,
Yep, Chair Emerita.
I don't see in this amendment to the contract anything about the allocation to the neighbor islands. That's important to me because in the last contract, unless I brought it up, they didn't come to Maui.
Let me. Are you referring to all three, or because in EOLA number 1, it does say community resource hub statewide. Where else is it missing, making you feel comfortable that this is not just an Oahu centric appropriation? Is it in number 2 and number 3?
Yeah, some kind of number, whether it's applicants or money, but some kind of a number to make sure we're not only getting 2,
Yeah.
Yes,
Go ahead, Summer.
I can make a recommendation. So if you go back to the OLA, number 1, please, right where we say essential needs support to verify Native Hawaiian households statewide within identified areas that were highly impacted. So that's one area where you can do. And then in number 3, in remaining number 3, subset 3 in point 1 in motion part 1. There you go. And 300,000 in remaining. Sorry, let me look here. 300,000 remaining encumbered funds to provide income bridge support to verified Native Hawaiian furloughed federal civilian workers, and you can add statewide in that piece as well. So we have statewide reflected in explicitly in subset 1, subset 2, and subset 3 of the EOLA program. And I want to reinforce, and even in the absence of explicitly stating that, Trustee Emerita, we understand and will reinforce and will show data demonstrating that these monies and these distributions are intended on a pai aina wide basis, and we'll continue to put forth really strong efforts, particularly on the neighbor islands.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there may need to be a little bit dedicated to, and maybe, I mean, the council did a lot of digital advertising and marketing, but even having some type of media presence, whether it's a radio ad or whatnot, on radio stations on Maui, Hawaii, Hawaii Island, even if it's a small allocation towards it, just to make sure that, because we can't support the people in Maui if they're not applying, if they're not reaching out to
Right.
us.
And if they don't know, they
and
cannot apply.
If they don't know, they cannot apply. So there's got to be a way that we're able to get that message out, and working with Bill and the comms team, there may be
And
a little
got
bit that we can
PSAs, Chair.
and
There's-
PSAs, sure, PSAs
Yeah,
are free.
PSAs, right.
Or we can get Chair Emerita on a morning radio show on Maui, right, Bill?
Yep, I can.
She's great. Okay. Yeah, yes. Thank you for making that point, Chair Emerita. Okay, so as I'm looking at number 1, an amendment would say verified Native Hawaiian households statewide within identified areas. We already have community resource hubs statewide. And then we would also add under the bridge support to verified Native Hawaiian furloughed federal civilian workers statewide. Yeah? In number 2, anywhere where it has the word household would say statewide. So in number 2, verified Native Hawaiian households statewide. And then in number 3, same thing. Verified Native Hawaiian households statewide. That's an amendment. Okay. Any more discussion?
Let them make the motion to adopt amendment.
You can take the amendment because it's basically an agreement. Normally you don't do amendments by unanimous consent, but it seems like that's not an issue here. So you can say, just have unanimous consent for that amendment.
Okay. Okay, so the chair asks for unanimous consent from the board for said amendments to proposed action item 1, 2, and 3. Yes. No objections. The amendment is adopted?
Is made. now,
Made.
And so the vote
Okay.
is on the amended item.
Any more questions, trustees? Trustee Kaka.
I'm seeing the word verified Native Hawaiian households. Do we need to be specific in terms of what verified means? Do we have to specifically identify that it is through our Native Hawaiian registry? Or is verified being broad
Sure,
work?
no, I like that. I mean, we could add HRP just before verified to provide essential needs support to HRP or Hawaiian Registry Program verified. We could do that. What we could do is, so we could say to provide essential needs support to spell out Hawaiian Registry Program, parentheses HRP, verified, and then to the rest of the document, you can just use HRP. You make that change, Everett? Or whoever's doing it. Alina? Trustee Souza?
Madam Mr. Chair, my question would be, how long would it take to verify? That's a whole nother process in itself, and we're talking about internal capacity versus external capacity. Are we focusing today on the HPP program, or are we I mean, I don't know, because we haven't fully established the process, so I'm just concerned that that may take away the imminent threat, right, and getting the funds out.
Vice Chair, yeah,
In a timely manner.
Yes,
Yeah.
mahalo for the question. Yes, we do focus on HRP. It is not explicitly built in as something that has to happen before funding is awarded. So it is going to extend the time in terms of response.
But, I mean, my only thought would be, because we posed the question to Kuhio, right? And he didn't seem that it was an insurmountable task to do and that it had been relatively successful. Of course, I know the burden fell to our BSA team,
Right.
Which is why you mentioned possibly bringing in a remedy support to do that.
So it's a two-part process, right? Like Hawaiian Council collects the appropriate data and documentation that establishes eligibility for HRP, and then that data point is transferred to OHA, and in OHA we do the actual, because we're the only entity that can issue cards and do that kind of processing. So if the way that this is phrased were to be understood as monies can't be awarded until that two-part process is completed, then we will experience a delay. Because at this point in time, it is enough that the requisite documentation is collected and forwarded to OHA to trigger the award of funding. You know, this process, I mean, what's being asked for now would strengthen the integrity of that. We haven't, in our small audit of a sample size, there hasn't been any red flags about the process that we had adopted being problematic. But this would add a layer of timing, additional timing that isn't otherwise built in, and for potentially a much larger, broader class of recipients, right? Like at this point in time, we're thinking about impacting at least 2,000 households. So that's.
I'm only, I hear your concern, trustee, but the 100,000 we're giving you and authorizing, you can move as quick as possible with that, right? If the council says here's a food hub, distribution hub, it meets the threshold that the admin has met, you've been delegated authority, you can move that money Friday. The bulk of the 2.9 is going to come in through data and through the needs assessment as people submit. And while they're submitting, we're running them through HRP. So that's why I think it's important. And I mean, Kuhio said one thing that I think resonated with you, which is, right, we need the role. We need the numbers, and we need the data, so that's the only thing I'm thinking is we get 2 for 1.
If I may respond. No.
ahead,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the follow-up. I'm just saying, I think today's emergency meeting was to allocate funds or reappropriate funds, I'm just saying, I think we start including certain terms in there. That's addressing the process, which, like I said earlier, doesn't fully, we're not there yet, I believe, in the process. But what we need to know is there funds available? Is this board going to approve those funds? And what the avenue is going to be. And I think that's what we address in the original action, number 1, 2, and 3. I think if we start to specify, I don't think we vetted or got an actual timeline. And maybe that's something that can be brought with the first update, maybe after 2 weeks. See how it's working out.
Thank you for that.
Mahalo nui, Vice Chair. And just so that all of the trustees know, regardless of whether or not it is specified here in the action item, we are going to move toward trying to get the HRP secured beforehand, because that's one of the learning experience that we had with the initial release of EOLA. And we want that data to have that level of integrity. So, however, if you don't state it, then we're not bound by a timeline that we're uncertain about.
No, I see both. I see both points for sure.
Verbiage including prioritizing HR. I mean, I don't know if we want to include it. We kind of.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're kind of talking a lot about it here, but you brought it up, so you want to
Well,
I brought it up because I saw the word verified, so one would wonder, well, how do you verify that? What is the process in which you verify that? And as it was discussed earlier, there was multiple mention of the OHA Hawaiian Registry Program. So given that that was applied in the previous process, I'm wondering, I think anyone who were to look at this action item, they would wonder themselves, what does verified mean? I'm not glued to this, however, I just bring that up because it kept being mentioned, and I think that we'll need to speak to what that process looks like.
Well, one consideration is to just take the whole thing out. You don't even have the word verified. But when I'm looking at our EOLA website, it's either or. So to qualify,
I think we should be consistent.
yeah, to qualify, applicants must be Native Hawaiian, either registered through the OHA Hawaiian Registry Program or able to show proof of Native Hawaiian ancestry. That's what we have right now. So maybe the
That
language
works.
is
Mirror that same language.
to provide essential needs support to Native Hawaiian households. You just take out verified, take out HRP.
And I think to help our administration, those that are administering this program and those that are interested to see if they even qualify, this helps having that language in there in terms of what verification looks like. And
Okay. So are we okay with taking it out? Okay.
I think Chair Merida had mentioned consistency.
Consistency, yeah. I
So
get you. Okay. Okay. So it would just read, Alina, to provide essential needs support to Native Hawaiian households statewide.
One other thing is that this verified Native Hawaiian households language came straight from the EOLA. It mirrors what the board-approved EOLA action item states. So it was designed to mirror and not deviate.
Well, but is the verification consistent with what we currently have as a process, which
Correct.
is you're either an HRP or you show a birth certificate?
Correct, yes.
That's what verified
That's
means.
what verified means, correct.
Okay, so we're back to keeping verified in. Beautiful.
Okay. What, Sean, I think for this particular conversation, whatever gets the lead out so it can move quicker is what we want. So by doing this in no way slows the process down, right?
Yeah.
It should increase, I mean, when I say get the lead out, I mean, we want to move.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're back to the originally unanimous consent board adopted action item, which is what Alina is amending it back to now. Okay, final round of questions, final saber rounds. Okay, well, let's do a roll call vote then and get this done for our people. Roll call.
Trustee Ahuna,
Definitely aye.
Trustee Akaka,
aye.
Trustee Akina,
Aye.
Trustee Alapa. Yes. Trustee Galuteria,
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay,
Aye.
Trustee Souza,
Aye.
Trustee Wahehe is excused, Chair Kahele.
Aye.
You have 8 yes votes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, trustees. Thank you so much, administration, for your hard work. Next item of the agenda, trustees.
Before we move on, and
Yep.
while we're still on this subject matter, I just want to acknowledge and say mahalo anui to community leaders, first responders, churches, food banks, labor unions, all levels of government workers, officials who remain vigilant, news stations, local and beyond our shores that are covering and sharing on the latest news, philanthropists, and all those who, in your own way, kokua, from our people to our pets to the places that we hold dear. I want to say mahalo anui and acknowledge each and every one for their continued kokua and support.
Thank you so much, Trustee Akaka. Okay, we are on the last item of our agenda, which is community concerns and celebrations. Lehua, do I have anyone signed up to speak on community concerns or celebrations?
Yes, we have one person online. We
Okay.
have Jermaine Myers.
Okay. Thank you.
Aloha Chair, is it okay to press that line?
Aloha, Jermaine. Yes, go ahead.
Aloha mahalo. Aloha Honorable Trustees, my name is Jermaine Myers. I'm an OHA beneficiary and Nanakuli Hawaiian Homestead lessee. I come before you today to share during the recent Kona storm and to ask for stronger coordination, preparedness, and accountability moving forward. Over the past 3 weeks, the Waianae Coast has endured back-to-back Kona Low systems, culminating in severe flooding last week, similar to everyone else statewide. In Nanakuli, families along Hakimo Road and Pa'akea were trapped in their homes as floodwaters rose around them. These are life-threatening conditions affecting our kupuna, our keiki, and our ohana. As shared in earlier testimony by a community member, Pikachu Billionaire, entire families were unable to safely leave their homes. Further down the coast in Kea'au near Makaha, farmers and campers had to be airlifted by helicopter to safety and transported to the emergency evacuation shelter at Nanakuli High and Intermediate School. These are serious emergency conditions, and yet no sirens were sounded. This is especially concerning because this occurred during spring break when many families were in vacation mode and not closely monitoring news or alerts. In a moment where immediate warning could have prevented dangerous situations, our communities did not receive that alert. Additionally, many homes across the Waianae Coast experienced prolonged power outages, some lasting 3 consecutive days and more, others intermittently over the course of a week leading up to the major flooding. As Trustee Akaka noted, this created food insecurity as families lost refrigeration for perishable items. Sack and Save, all of the refrigerators went down and everything were spoiled. But it went beyond that. Without electricity, families could not charge their phones or devices. Communication was cut off. And when power goes down, cell towers are also impacted. In my own experience, my cell phone, all of my family's and neighbors' cell phones, and my mother's and many other landlines were unable to make calls, send texts, or access reliable internet. This is a critical failure in emergency communication infrastructure. When communities cannot receive alerts, cannot call for help, and cannot access information during a disaster, we are left vulnerable. While we are grateful that emergency shelters were open, there were also concerns from residents about shelters closing sooner than expected, without clear transition plans for those who had nowhere safe to return to. For displaced families, especially those already vulnerable, this created additional hardship and uncertainty. Emergency response must include not only immediate shelter, but thoughtful transition planning, clear communication, and coordination to ensure no one is left without support. And our Waianae Coast communities, many of whom are Native Hawaiian, are already among the most underserved. So I come today, not just to share concerns, but to respectfully ask for action. First, there must be a review of why emergency sirens were not activated and clear protocols established for future flooding events. Second, the state must address the vulnerability of communication systems, particularly the dependence of cell towers on electrical power, so that emergency communication remains functional during outages. Third, there must be stronger coordination between state, county, and community leaders to ensure timely, localized alerts and response, especially in rural and coastal communities like Waianae. And finally, our farmers, especially those in areas like Hakima Road, Pa'akea, and Kea'au, need support. Those storms have real impacts on livelihoods, local food systems, and community resilience. Chair and trustees, disasters reveal the gaps in our systems. What we experience on the Waianae Coast is not just a natural disaster. It is a test of whether our systems are working for our people. Right now, there are gaps, but those gaps can be addressed with intention, coordination, and commitment. I ask that OHA use its voice and influence to advocate for these improvements because the health and safety of our Native Hawaiian communities depend on it. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify. Ke akua pu. God bless all of you.
Thank you, Jermaine. Lehua, anyone else signed up to testify?
There is no one else signed up.
Okay, we'll go to announcements, and Chair recognizes Trustee Galuteria for a special announcement.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members, I just want to remind you that tomorrow is Prince Kuhio Day. It's an official holiday here in Hawaii, and it's celebrated annually on March 26th to mark the birthday of Prince Jonah Kuhio Kalaneanaole, heir to the throne of the Kingdom of Hawaii, Prince of the House of Kalakaua, and later delegate, territorial delegate to the United States Congress. So bear that in mind, and let's celebrate his birth tomorrow. Aloha.
Mahalo, Trustee Galuteria.
Oh, another announcement.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. We're pleased that our PLT bills advanced yesterday in legislature. So thank you to Chairman Tim Richards. And we'll see where it goes from here, but we'll be keeping you folks in touch with what's happening with the Public Land Trust Working Group bill. Okay?
As well as the pro rata share.
And the pro rata share, and hopefully lifting the cap. And there's a couple of other moving parts. So we'll see how it goes to the short strokes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chair's announcement, several announcements. OHA's Hawaii Island Satellite Office will be at Kailapa Community Association Pavilion on Friday, March 27th, and at Na'alehu Park on Saturday, March 28th, during the Kuhio Day celebration. There's also a parade in Kapolei on Saturday, March 28th for Prince Kuhio. Next week, Wednesday, April 1st, will be the convening of all three standing committees of the Board of Trustees, and that will start at 9 a.m. The Budget and Finance Committee will have a few budget briefings that we will start hearing from our PAIA on their current budget expenditures and future budget asks, along with budget briefings on the next day's Board of Trustee meeting, which will convene at 9 a.m. on Thursday, April 2nd. There are nominations for the Alakai Awards for our hardworking staff throughout all of OHA's offices statewide. That is now open and will be due on Tuesday, April 7th. So please take the time to highlight an outstanding staff member or an outstanding supervisor for the third quarter of fiscal year 2026. That will start January 1st and runs through March 31st. We have updated the Office of Foreign Affairs Military Leased Lands webpage, or Aloha Aina webpage, with the letter that was received last week from the United States Army about how it will engage through the Governor's Advisory Committee on Military Leased Lands here in Hawaii. I'd also like to remind our beneficiaries about the Merry Monarch Hula Festival, which will be held next month in Hilo, where OHA will be hosting workshops, marching in the parade on Saturday, April 11th, and also having a table for beneficiaries to stop by at I believe, at the Hilo Civic Auditorium. I will post those details next week about where OHA's presence will be in Hilo. We're also looking forward to visiting our beneficiaries on Maui and Kauai in May of 2026. We will be on the island of Maui on May 6th and May 7th, hosted by our Chair Emerita Hulu Lindsay, and then on the island of Kauai, the Garden Island, on May 14th to the 15th, hosted by our Trustee Ahuna. Finally, if you're interested in applying for a sponsorship, a Ho'akoakoa sponsorship from OHA for events to occur between October 2026 and December 2026, please apply through OHA's website, our grants portal, which will open on April 1st, 2026 and close on May 29th, 2026. Do we have any other announcements, trustees, for our beneficiaries? I want to thank our trustees for convening on such short notice. I want to especially thank our hardworking staff who have worked tirelessly over the last few days, literally up until about 30 minutes before we convened with the action item for signature. We deeply, deeply appreciate your hard work, your commitment to our Lahui and to our organization. And we just want to say mahalo and thank you. Mahalo. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Ahuna,
Aye.
Trustee Akaka,
Aye.
Trustee Akina,
Aye.
Trustee Alapa, Trustee Galuteria,
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay,
Aye.
Trustee Souza, Trustee Wahe is excused, and Chair Kahele.
Aye.
We have 8 yes votes. We are adjourned.